Welcome. In accordance with the Utah Code 52-4-207 Rule 4, due to the infectious disease COVID-19 novel coronavirus, I have determined that meeting in an anchor location presents substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location because physical distancing measures may be difficult to maintain in the Murray City Council chambers. Federal, state, and local leaders have all acknowledged the global pandemic. Salt Lake County Public Health Order 2020-15, dated October 26, 2020, recognizes that COVID-19 is a contagion that spreads from person to person and poses a continuing and immediate threat to the public health of Salt Lake County residents. It is my intent to safeguard the lives of Murray residents, business owners, employees, and elected officials by meeting remotely through electronic means without an anchor location. But the public may view the meeting via the live stream at www.murraycitylive.com or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Murray City, Utah. Okay. And let's see, we start out with, I'm holding our council agenda for Tuesday and not next Tuesday. Here we go. All right, so we're going to start out with our budget overview with Brenda Moore.
So before I start, the mayor would like to just say a couple things about the meeting, and so I'm going to turn a little bit of my time over to Mayor Camp.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take just a second, and first of all, thank you all for taking the time to meet as a Budget and Finance Committee to go over the mid-year budget. Thank you. I know it's one of your responsibilities and an important one, so thank you for doing that. I wanted to also let you know that the department heads are very well aware of what to expect here today as far as this is a review of the current year budget, and of course we're not to our budget development process for next budget year yet, so they're aware of that. And I think you'll find that they're very well prepared to talk about this is a little bit different this year because in past years they haven't had to really talk about things that were cut quite as much as this year. And so what I'm hoping that when we're through at the end of the day today, that we are all able to say, okay, it looks like the council will be in favor of adding this or this or this, and that we can move forward with a budget opening in the future. And so that's what we're really hoping to accomplish today. But I think you'll find that the department heads are very well prepared to answer your questions this afternoon. And I want to thank them for the good job that they've done as well. So with that, Brenda, you've got the overview. So good luck. Take it away.
Okay, so my plan is to review very quickly how the revenue of the enterprise funds and how their net positions are doing halfway through this year, review the general fund and general fund revenue, and then talk a little bit about the capital projects and where they are stand. The department heads will go into detail about the actual capital projects. I'm just going to talk in general about the capital projects fund. Please ask questions as we go. I would like this to be discussion when necessary. I didn't do a fancy PowerPoint or anything. If you would like to see a schedule on my screen that I'm referring to, I can share it. Otherwise, I'll refer to page numbers. If there's any of the public listening, if you go to the murray.utah.gov website, right on the first page under what is happening, there is a link for the 2020 mid-year budget review. And if you click that, click one more time on that, it'll open the PDF that we are referring to. So the public can view that if they choose to. A couple of notes that you may have noticed as you were reviewing all of these funds and departments. Personnel appears to be way ahead of last year, if you're looking at it. That's due to the 27 payrolls that we had in December, or in calendar 2020. So that put 3 payrolls in December where there's usually 2. So Next year, employees will receive 26 pay periods again. It goes back. It doesn't affect our budget in that way because at the end of the year, one of those fancy accounting rules is we accrue back whatever days of work apply to fiscal year, that closing fiscal year, back into that fiscal year. We should be okay with the extra payroll. It's just put us ahead of schedule than what we would have been. If you also noticed, there's interest income in some of the funds that may be negative. That is due to another one of those pesky accounting rules that at the end of the year, we had to make our investments match market. So they were more than what we had booked them at. And then in July, we reversed that entry. So some of the departments were starting at a negative interest rate. Because interest rates have dropped, we haven't made that up yet. Right now, just for your information, we're receiving 0.06 on percent on funds held by Zions. We try to keep that as low as possible. 0.48% on funds held at the PTIF, and the investments are anywhere between 1 and 1.5%. Last year at this time, they were running at about 1.5% for everybody. So our interest has taken a hit. Luckily, we don't depend on that for any real revenue. That's just kind of gravy.
Brenda,
Yes.
where are you at?
I'm just talking in general. I haven't really gotten into any specifics on what page,
Okay,
but
so
I
you're-
will start on page 5.
Okay,
And I'm
so
ready.
you're not at this point on
No,
any
that's just
specific
stuff-
page?
Yeah, that's just stuff you may have noticed as you were reviewing.
Okay,
And as you were reviewing, you may have noticed receivables are up for all enterprise funds. This is in part due to, for water and power, just generally due to higher revenues. But there is also an increase in delinquencies. We did not shut customers off from April to August and again in September and October. So it's created a high number of delinquencies. We are slowly whittling those down. The CARES funds that we sent to Utah Community Action helped many of the people affected by COVID, the individuals. They did distribute the entire $100,000 that we sent them. And we are sending them another $8,800 to cover the applications that were in process once they realized that they had hit the 100,000 mark. Our utilities were not the only company to receive our Murray CARES funds. Some went to Rocky Mountain Power, so that means some individuals east of 9th East took advantage of it, and some went to Questar. So let's start with page 5. I'm going to just do the enterprise funds very quickly. Don't worry, on the water fund, if you look, their revenue, well, I guess the water fund is looking okay. The revenue is fine. If you look at total revenue, when you include the bond proceeds, we are down, but that's because of the bond proceeds. We are not bonding this year, so their operations revenue is fine. The metered water cells, let's go to, the metered water cells are up this year, and you've probably heard about it from your constituents. A lot of that some of that was due to a rate increase, but the majority of it was due to the summer being one of the driest and hottest on record, and people actually watered into October, which I've never watered in October before, and I ended up watering. The dryness put people in the higher tiers, and that did result in higher revenue for the water fund. Wastewater, which is also on page 5, the revenue has increased, and they're running right at half of the year's budget. So they're right on budget for their revenue. Impact fees this year, I don't have that on this page. Impact fees this year are down 52%, but there's nothing we can do about that. That is just the nature of power. Their revenue is looking good. If you look at it and get a little concerned, we did do some reallocation of where revenue goes, but they're doing fine. And the unrestricted fund balance may seem high, but but I think it's right in line with where it needs to be due to if there's a natural disaster, we may have to rebuild significant portions of the system, and it could take a lot of money to do that. Golf Fund on page 6. Their revenue is for 50% of the year being done, they're at 73% of the revenue. That's due to the pandemic. They're one of the few or one of the places that has benefited because you're outdoors all the time. So a lot of people have been golfing. They still have a negative unrestricted net position, and we are slowly digging that hole out. And that will continue until they get the loan for their water system paid. Solid waste, their revenue is running slightly ahead of budget and ahead of last year. There have been a few new single family residences added to the system, which helps with their revenue. Now that we have a new 5-year contract signed with ACE, I think it might be 3 with some options. The plan is to review the rate structure and to adjust as necessary. I think it's going to be just fine the way it is, but I'm not sure. We have a little more research to do. And stopping to the transfer to the general fund has helped their fund balance, and it's starting to look much healthier. They were on the downward slide, and the rate increase with stopping that transfer has really helped them. Stormwater, everything is looking good there. The rate increase we had is starting to allow them to save for some future stormwater projects that they have in the pipeline. So those are basically the enterprise funds. The central garage and risk management are doing just fine. Of course, the revenue comes from the other funds, and they should be and are right on 50% of their budget. Do you have any questions about the enterprise funds, just in general for their revenue? Okay, I don't see anybody reaching for their mute button. So I am going to.
Oh, we've got a question.
Okay.
So as far as risk goes, what are some of the things that we are spending in risk?
So what happens in risk is they track and any accidents or stuff that our employees are involved in, they are the place that handles litigation. That's where their expenses come from. They pay all of our insurance claims, our insurance bills. So for our property insurance, our all the liability insurances we have, they're the fund that takes care of that.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
If I could just add, Councilmember Dominguez, when GL is scheduled to discuss his budget, he will bring forward some detailed expenditure information on what is being spent in that risk fund.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so I'm going to skip backwards just a little bit and go over some of the, so page 3, and just go over a little bit of the revenue for the non-general fund and capital projects. So the RDA has received their first part of their distribution for property tax, And as you can see on page 5, they're the third section down, they are already at 126% of budget. The the Central Business District, Fire Clay, and East Vine areas have met or above the over their budget. Cherry Street and the Smelter area are close enough that the second distribution will put them over budget. So the values of the property in those areas have been going up. And I also think some of the, like the school district and some of the other districts that are contributing to the RDA have had property tax increases, which will increase the amount of revenue that they do get, I believe. So that's part of the reason theirs is above budget. The library, which is on page 4, they have collected the majority of their property tax. There are another 6 months in the personal property tax that they will collect, but they're looking like their revenue is going to be about right on budget. And if you saw just below the library, there's a new fund that I am listing. That's the Municipal Building Authority. That is the fund that is building City Hall. Right now, it has the revenue of 36 million has come in, and that will be all of the revenue that we have to build City Hall. So let's hope the weather holds and we have that $34 million budget and we can get that done in the next couple of years. So that's it for the other kind of non-general fund funds. Anybody have any questions about those?
Any questions?
Okay. So page 8. I put a couple graphs in here just so you can get an idea visually about how the general fund budget goes and works. The first one is kind of the history of the general fund, the revenue versus the expenses and the different types of expenses. So we have revenue, expenditures in orange, the transfers in and the transfers out. All of the, not all, but most of the transfers out go to the CIP fund to fund our capital projects. So then below, because someone asked last year, I put the expenditures in by category. So if you look, the blue lines of the various years is personnel. The operations is the orange, debt service, and then capital outlay within the general fund, and that is the Class C. When we build streets and stuff with Class C money, that stays within the general fund. So as you can see, personnel is our biggest expenditure, and they're also do the best work for the city. Okay, so those are just some ideas visually about if we ever do need to do serious budget cuts again and stuff, the only way you can really get substantial cuts out of our budget is when you start talking personnel. You can get some out of operations, but substantial cuts would have to be personnel. Luckily, I got my fingers crossed. We're not going to have to do that in the next budget that we are working on. Page 9. This page summarizes the general fund by expenditure type and by function. So if you scan down like personnel, you will see that almost every function of government is below 50% on their, in fact, they all are, 50% on their payroll personnel costs. If you scan down their operations, you will see that almost everybody, there are a few who are not, that are below 50%. If you're curious about development services, we'll talk about it later, but that 69% is being made up by the 40% that they are in salaries. They're kind of offsetting each other right now. We can talk, when we're talking to Melinda, we'll talk about reasons for that. So that's what this page does. And it's just a little bit different than the page. The next page is our general fund revenue. And this is where I wanted to kind of get into the weeds a little bit with you. Page 10. And kind of go over some stuff, because this will set the basis on whether we can feel good about possibly adding back budget items for our departments as we go through the general fund. So if you scan down the revenue, sales tax, which is our big one, we've gotten the majority of our property tax. I'm thinking we'll come in right at year end at budget. We have not received our personal property taxes yet. Those come in April. If you scan down, we've been talking about this every month, but we have transient room taxes, which are way below budget. Sales and use taxes are running, we've only received 4 out of our 12 months. So we've received 33% of the year, and we are at 42% of budget. So those are looking really good. And then the
Brenda?
other taxes, yes.
What is motor vehicle fee in lieu? What does that mean? What is that?
That they used to have a property tax on your motor vehicles, and now they have an age-based fee. And so it's essentially the same thing, but now they call it motor vehicle in lieu as opposed to property tax. Because it's based on its age, not on its value. So it's a fee. And we get that through DMV when you register your car, and we get a percentage of that. So that's what that is. We have no control over that. So let's see what else I was going to. Oh, our telecom tax. That's the tax on your telephones. We do get sales or tax on cell phones, but I think most people have given up their landline. For a while, most people had both. Now they've given up landlines, and you may have more phones in your household than you used to, but they're all on a family plan. So, and the rates for phone service has not gone up very much. So that tax has actually been trending down. Municipal energy tax. It's paid on the same delay as the other sales taxes, so it's doing really well. It's just sitting at 42%, so it's come up a little bit. The Murray Municipal Energy Tax is the energy tax that it gets paid to Murray Power, and that one is not on a delay because we get that every month because it's an internal journal entry to get that paid to us. And then licenses and fees, we're sitting at half of budget, so that's going really good. It is less than last year, but we have no control over which company comes in and does building permits. Our grants, you will notice the big COVID-19 CARES grant for $2.1 million of revenue still in the general fund. We have moved some of that revenue out to the other funds. The rest of the revenue is...
Brenda?
Yes.
That COVID-19 CARES grant, that's not a use it or lose it.
No.
Okay.
We've used it. As far as the county and the federal government is concerned, we have used it.
Awesome.
I am now reallocating how we have used it. As we finish up projects within the parks for faucets, the hands-free faucets and some of those projects, we're reallocating how we used it, but we have spent that entire amount.
Awesome. Thank you.
at least as far as the county is concerned. Parks and Rec, their revenue is way down, and I'll discuss it a little further, as you can imagine, because we have not opened fully back up and people are hesitant to go to the Park Center, and we have to keep the numbers down. So even if they wanted to go to the pool, if hundreds of people wanted to go, there's a limit on how many people we can allow in there. Justice Court's fines are the same. We're just not, I don't think we're writing as many tickets, and we're also not processing as many cases. So I have one screen to share with you unless you have any specific questions about the revenue, I have an overall where we stand and what I'm projecting for the next year, for 6 months. Okay. So let me try sharing the screen, and hopefully I made the print big enough that you can see it. It's a little tricky because of my, okay, so it should be a spreadsheet. First line, sales tax budget. Somebody shake your head if that's what you see. Okay, thank you. So the sales tax budget with both our normal sales tax, we have our 0.2, and I threw transient room in there just because they're running down and I wanted to take that into consideration. For this year is $17,680,000. I am projecting with what we have collected, and if we collect the exact same amount of sales tax we did last year. Now, if anybody remembers, we didn't collect a whole lot in April and May. But I'm saying, okay, we're going to collect at least that much. Our projected sales tax collected would be $21,128,000. With the same, with the transient room, I'm predicting that we're going to collect 50% of what we were before, because that is what we are currently doing. It's not come back. So they're going to get about $95,000 by the end of the year. So we're going to be at $21,223,000. So I'm projecting we're going to be over budget by about $3.5 million. When we created the budget for fiscal year 21, we said we're going to use $2.9 million of reserves in order to balance this budget. Okay, that leaves us, if my projections are accurate and the world doesn't fall apart again, that leaves us with $565,000 of tax we're going to collect over what we thought we were going to use in reserves. The parks, I'm projecting that they're going to be about $900,000 short of their revenue. That's going to be offset by a decrease in the amount of they're paying for their part-time wages. With the hours of the park center not being as long, with limited number of people in the pool, they have less lifeguards. You can kind of see how it just filters down to, there's just less people needed to run our parks and our facilities. So I'm projecting maybe $300,000 they'll save. So their revenue is still going to be down $600,000. Court fines, I'm thinking they're going to be down about 237 off of budget. I should have done a better job budgeting those things. So our amount of estimated revenue below budget, about $273,000. That just tells you that yes, well, okay. Then we have the CARES money that we got, the I can't even remember what it was now. We have used a lot of that in hard costs, but we have about maybe 1.2 million that I would call that we've used for costs that we had already budgeted originally. So we've used it and told the county and the feds that yes, we've used. We'll just go with 1.2 just because it's an easy number. We'll go with $1.2 million to cover COVID-related expenses in police and fire, and COVID sick leave that we have had to give out 2 employees because they're quarantined, whatever. So we have about $1.2 million of this COVID CARES grant that is not going right at this point to cover hard costs. So that can cover, not directly, but indirectly, that will help us with our revenue, because our grant revenue is going to be high, but our operations revenue is going to be under budget. So the two offset each other. So there is some room, as we're looking through here, to, and as we're talking to department heads, to hand back some of the revenue or the expenses that were cut from their budgets. And I would be totally comfortable doing that to a point. I'm very conservative, so I will, we're not going to add back anything they don't actually need. And I think we should be very conservative about how much we do add back as we're doing it. But I think we have the income. I know sales tax is probably, this projected sales tax collected is low because I left April and May as it appeared, and we were basically shut down those 2 months. So there's not a doubt in my mind sales tax is going to come in even higher than $21 million unless something happens. And I don't see anything on the horizon, considering we have a vaccine and we're kind of working through that whole process. So any questions? Okay, let me do a quick thing about the.
Hey, Brenda, just one sec. So that was really helpful. Thank you for the chart and the graphs. Really, really clear. So I just wanted clarity on, so you talked about the part of the CARES Act money we've already spent and then amounts that can still be redistributed, excuse me. What is a conservative ballpark that you would feel comfortable with that is left for redistributing?
Oh, that we could use for stuff, hard costs, which we're not having a whole lot of COVID-related hard expenses right now. We have bought more hand sanitizer and stuff that I think we know what to do with. It will last for quite a while, but I'm guessing that there's probably at least $1 million that will go police and fire presumption, which means that it's going to offset already budgeted police and fire salaries. So.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on or forward?
I have a question, Kat.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm trying to understand the meaning of your question. Is in other words, are you asking, is there money that we can give other agencies or other organizations from the CARES money? Or were you just looking for an explanation of what's left over that the city can keep to offset our public safety expenses?
The second part.
Okay.
That was me.
Yeah, because we've had, just so you all know, we've had requests from other organizations outside of the city to help with CARES expenses. And in some cases, we have helped, but we are more recently telling other organizations that we are keeping the money to reimburse the city for our public safety expenses. So just so you know, we are now most recently telling those organizations that we don't have money to give them.
Doug, tell us what kind of organizations you're talking about.
So we have had requests from the Murray School District, from the Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District, as well as the Community Action Program. And those are the three big ones. There are other organizations that are eligible, such as the nonprofit organizations, as well as other special districts that operate in the utilities that are eligible for those funds. But to date, they haven't asked.
That's
Thank
really
you.
interesting information. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just want to say, Brenda, that was way, way, way impressive. I knew you were going to give us that about $1 million figure, and that's awesome.
Okay, quick, just general comment about capital projects. As you know, they get the majority of their revenue from the general fund transfers. With like general fund transfers made during 2019 become 2021's budget, 2020s will become 2022's. And when we were preparing the 2021 budget, we all remember there were so many unknowns. We didn't know what was happening. So we lowered the amount that we allocated for projects. And since then, our general fund revenue, as we went in, there are some areas that are not trending very well, but the majority, which is sales tax, which is our major revenue source, is trending okay and ahead of the previous year's budget. So I'm just going to tell you, I feel very comfortable adding some additional projects to the capital projects fund to get them started, to get to make sure we don't fall too far behind like we did in the last recession on keeping our maintenance of our facilities up and our equipment usable and stuff like that. So we thought last year by the end of 2020, we were going to send less than we normally would to the capital projects fund. We ended up sending more to the capital projects fund than what we had budgeted. I had to do a budget adjustment to cover that. So I feel comfortable adding it back. There's no reason to add every cent back that they had requested last year. I'm sure if they were honest, some of those things that they requested have now been supplanted by other things that have more issues. So we'll let the department heads talk to you about that as we go through. Quick thing on my departments that I actually run, page 36. We are doing some training still within the finance department. It's just all by webinar. So there is, I think there is a national convention for GFOA scheduled. I haven't heard a ton about it, so I have a feeling it's going to go online. And if it does, I might attend. If it doesn't, there's no way I'm leaving town and going to Chicago to go to a conference in April or May. It's just not going to happen. So all of my departments, they are actually trending very well. Everything is staying at or below budget. In non-departmental, just so you know, we have had an increase of unemployment within the city because part-timers for a long time, I think they might be back to it, were eligible to collect unemployment if we weren't employing them. But that's all being covered by the CARES grant. So we have not seen a big uptick in our unemployment. Non-departmental expenses are all looking good. And if we don't spend those non-departmental amounts, of course, they get rolled back into fund balance. We have not done any of the transfers to the capital projects yet. We will do those in June. The rest of my departments, they're all looking good. I do have one number that's kind of out of whack, which is the credit card fees on the treasurer, which is page 38. Those fees are probably, we're looking at them, and they'll probably get allocated out to the enterprise funds with their credit card fees. You've heard about it. We changed the system, and those are the third-party processor fees for utility billing. So everything else, finance is fine. We don't need any equipment. We're just chugging along, doing our thing. Any questions about finance and admin?
Good question, Brett.
Yeah, I really don't have a question. I just want to say, Brenda, I know you're going to get a big head over this, but nice call when you were doing this last time. You predicted a lot of this, so nice job.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing anyone else looking like they have a question. So I'll just say thank you, Brenda, so much for your guidance through this unknown time, which we all were doing a lot of guesswork, a lot of trying to see into the future. And thank you for all of the guidance that you gave us on that, because it was a lot. Go ahead, Diane.
Brenda, I keep looking at this in utility billing, the overtime, 755%.
Yes. I'm not concerned. It's going to be offset by, well, the reason it's there to start with is the new system. We're having to pay some overtime to get some things done, especially as we were converting to the new system. Brittany and Karen were working a lot of extra hours. I'm not concerned with the overtime. It should be able to be offset by other expenses within the department that are not as high. Let me find them again, utility billing. Because it's only $3,000 or $3,700. There will be more
Right.
by the end of the year.
My eyes kept going to that, and I've looked at, I mean, that's
That's a big, because I allowed people to have overtime. Normally, we do not allow them to take the money instead of the comp time. But someone like Karen, who's been here 20-something years, she can barely get her vacation taken, let alone comp time. And give them the choice. I gave them the choice. You can take comp time if you want more time off later, or you can take money if that would help you out more now. So, but it's going to be offset easily by the group insurance line. I think I did the new hires at Family when I was projecting it, and I ended up hiring a single person. That saves a bunch of money. So
okay.
it's going to offset.
All right, if you're okay with it.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks, Diane. Great question. All right. If there aren't any other questions, then we will move on to municipal court and hear from Judge Thompson and Karen.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Welcome.
What is it that you want to hear from me?
Tell us what page we're on.
Yep, that'd be a great start.
34.
All right. Well, I'll turn to meet you on your page. Did you say 34?
34.
Okay. We'll meet you there. Great. And then would love to hear just anything you think of note in the budget that the numbers don't say for themselves, and anything that you're wanting added back in, or if you feel good about where you are. That's what we'd like to hear from you.
Okay, so right now we're kind of in a holding pattern with the court since we can't have in-person hearings yet. So really our budget is kind of static. It's actually quite low. We're not using a lot of stuff because we don't have transports. We have minimal interpreters. We are not going to training. Everything is on a platform called WebEx, just like Zoom. So we're not physically, leaving. Everything's pretty much staying the same. There's nothing that, is getting used essentially because we can't have in-person hearings right now. So, but we are having hearings. We are on video, and we're hearing between 60 and 80 cases a day. And cases are moving along, and we're finding innovative ways to keep moving on. We're going through old cases, and we have phone numbers. We're personally contacting them and saying, hey, you have a court date. We need to schedule this. So I don't really have anything, unless Brenda, am I off base on this at all?
You are right on. You're doing really well on all of your budget line items.
Yeah, I just, there's, that there are things that we need, but they're not vital, and they can wait for a few. So
Karen,
Thank you. Go ahead, Diane.
I'm just curious, how is WebEx working for you? Why do you
Really well.
use that rather than Zoom?
it's working really well. We have, there's all the courts are using WebEx. So sometimes there's a little lag, but our IT is great. We have a really great system that, our connection's very good. And I think that makes a difference. I know there are some courts that don't have a good connection and they're having a few issues, but for us, it's not becoming an issue. Not only that, but if for whatever reason they can't get on video with WebEx, they can call in still and do it that way. And everything's recorded and,
Right.
all that's taken care of. So
Great. I was just curious. It's good to see you. Good to see you, Judge.
thank you.
Any other questions from council members or comments? No, Karen, it sounds like you guys are doing wonderful, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was quick. We have, if GL's ready, we can go to the attorney's office. But I'm not sure if he's on because we're a bit ahead. There he is. Hi, GL.
Hi, I am here. I'm ready to go. If you're ready,
If you don't mind diving in a little early, that would be great.
that's fine. You bet. Are there any questions I can ask or answer starting off with?
Page
What's
60,
the
Brett.
page?
60.
Page 60. Thank you. That's always our first question.
Question.
For some reason, your department just doesn't have a lot of questions pertaining to it besides what the heck are you doing?
There's one thing I would point out in there, and that is in the prosecutor's budget. There, we budgeted quite a bit for books and subscription and have not spent that. And the reason for that is we are anticipating a computer program database. Originally, it was going to be eProsecutor, and that's one that some of the prosecutors' offices across the state are using. But we're looking for a grant to be able to get that, and we have not received that grant, so we're looking elsewhere. But that expense won't be expended until we find that database program, data management program, I should say.
That's really good information. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns?
GL, I had mentioned earlier, Councilmember Dominguez asked a question about risk management and what comprises risk management. And I know you have a number of issues that you want to make the council aware of coming up with risk management. Would you mind going over that?
Sure, be happy to. Thanks, Doug. So one of the areas that risk management is over is insurance, making sure that the city's property is insured and that we have excess liability insurance. And what we have found is a trend nationwide where the expense of insurance is increasing. And when we budgeted for insurance, we did not know how much the increase would be. It's been actually quite a bit more than we thought. We're with States Insurance Company, and that's something we've been with since about the 80s for liability insurance. And I think we budgeted for about a 10 or 15% increase. It looks like it may be closer to 20. What we're finding is that this is a trend nationwide with all the different insurance companies that insure municipalities. And we'll be looking at this again this year, but we sense that we're probably in the right place. It is just something that is a trend nationwide. In addition to that, and kind of in concert with that is, I was talking to Jordan, our risk manager, the other day, and we believe that state's insurance has only paid out on one claim for Murray City that we could think of since about the 1980s. So we've been a very, very good customer. And you can see now when we have about 5 cases that are pending, litigation cases, serious cases, that this is a bit of a change for us. And so we know that litigation expenses are increasing as well. I don't recall a time in my 23 years when we've had this many cases pending at the same time that are serious cases. So I've talked to Brenda, and we probably will come back at a budget opening later in the year to deal with that as well, the litigation expenses as well as any increased insurance expenses. What we're trying to do with states in terms of the insurance premium is we're trying to get, we pay that in April every year. We'd like to get that on the fiscal year calendar so that we could pay that in July, and we're trying to work that out with states now. So if that's the case, we would be talking about that down the road and not as soon as the litigation expenses. But those two things are both coming out of risk, and want to make you aware of those, both of those.
GL, is that the power claims?
No, that's the claims is a bit different. Litigation is the professional services.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the power claims has used 100% in risk management.
So let me do a quick.
What is that?
Let me do just a quick explanation. We don't know which departments are going to have claims during the year. That's anything from somebody driving a truck into a power truck backing over whatever, having a car accident. We don't know who's going to do what. So we budget all of the claims in one place, and it's just called liability claims. And then as they happen, I reallocate that budget down amongst all of the claims based on which departments have had claims. So you'll notice almost all of them, in fact, they all are at 100%, except for the one I forgot to change the formula on. Because that's just what the claims have been this year. And I'm not sure exactly what they are, but golf claims, it's entirely possible as golf balls flying into somebody's windshield. Just that kind of stuff. So that's why they're all at 100%. We still have $171,000 left in there of the claims. So that's how that kind of works. It's just kind of an accounting function.
Okay, so we haven't had just a lot of power claims then, as opposed to golf claims or stormwater claims. So you just assign those after. I see. Okay.
So we have talked about his professional services, his being the risk funds professional services. They are going to need money probably by the end of the year. I think he's said that. So we may not do it in the next upcoming budget opening. We may wait a little while and and just see where we're trending, and then do it in May or June, just so we only have to do it once. And same with the liability insurance. If we can get that switched around, we won't need to do it this year, but next year's budget will probably go up.
Quick question. How many cases are we looking at? Because I'm assuming we are looking at outside litigation that is helping us with these cases, right? And that would fall under professional services, correct?
That's correct.
About how many cases have we averaged before? Is this year just one of those years where we have more? Just to kind of put that in perspective.
Question. So a case to litigate typically takes at least 2 and more likely 3 to 4 years. So one of these cases started about 3 years ago, and then we've picked up these cases as they've gone, and we have not had 5 pending litigation cases at the same time that I'm aware of, with the seriousness of the cases. We'll have in a given year, really, I'd say every other year do we get one that's filed, and it's typically not terribly serious compared to what we're seeing right now. So this is something that which to me, in my experience, is the first time in about 23 years that I've seen this much litigation for the city all at the same time ongoing. And these are at different stages, as you can appreciate, of the case.
And last question, is there anything on our end that, I'm sure this is a long or something we can discuss later, but on our end that we can help with that, whether it's a change here and there because of the insurance premiums going up? Do we have anything that that we're seeing other municipalities do to help with that increase in insurance, that we can decrease it? Or are there things that the insurance company is suggesting that we look at?
Those are really good questions. The answer probably is that each department, I think, is doing its best to mitigate those risks that it has. And this is just one of those things that has come really over the last 3 years. Can we do more? Sure, we can probably do more in terms of our risk management in each different department. But by and large, some of these things are just going to happen because we're a city and we do so many different activities. And I don't know that you can really foresee or prevent much of what we're seeing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'll just ask one. Jumping back, Brenda mentioned we'll need a budget opening for the attorneys, the subscription service. Is that what you mentioned, Brenda?
No.
Maybe I missed that.
Professional services.
That's what I meant. Thank you. Professional services. Do we have a ballpark for what that will be?
No. Well, if you're the trend right now, he's at 78% of budget. So my guess is that he's going to be 25% under budget or over budget. So probably at least another 50,000, could be as close to 100,000. But that's kind of why we're waiting to see what happens with states and the insurance, because if we don't need to use all of the insurance budget, we can just use some of that for the professional services. So once we know what states is doing, then we'll have a better idea of how much we need to increase the budget for professional services.
Thank you.
Last question. So States is our insurance company, and it's like any other claim, right? Like if we were to get an accident, we submit it to them, they decide what they're going to pay out, and then we supplement that.
As long as it's more than $250,000. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to understand how we would work that out. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing anyone else leaning forward with questions. Anything else you want to tell us, GL? Any fun budget attorney stories? Anything you want to share before you go?
I've got a lot of stories, but none I probably should share.
Not on a public meeting. Okay, great.
Thank you for everybody.
Thank you. All right, we are running a little bit ahead, but if Blaine is here and available, there he is. Hi, Blaine. We'll turn it over to him to tell us anything that the numbers aren't telling us and what else he's got on his mind.
Thanks, Kat.
Page 78.
That is correct, 78. I've got Greg Ballon and Bruce Turner on as well, and we will maybe tag team on a few of the line items you might have questions on. Just as a preliminary, I will explain that our budget is big. It's a $37 to $40 million budget depending on the year, and most of our revenue, of course, comes from metered sales. And most of our expenses come from electrical contracts, I guess you could say, where we buy our power. About $21 million is our power bill each year. And that's sizable. These are places we buy power from or generate our natural gas costs or whatever the case may be. We're doing well with 50% of the year gone. We have 55% of our revenue coming in. And Greg will explain the reason for that in just a moment. I don't want to steal his thunder too bad. But we welcome your questions as far as, where we buy our power from, costs this year versus last year, those types of things. We have a few projects that we've been working on that are, I guess, specific to we're in 2021 now, that have expensed out a little bit, but for the long term, they're going to be to our benefit. Greg is in charge of our budget, as well as our dispatching, 24-hour day dispatching, our warehousing, and Bruce Turner is involved with the line crews, the workout on the lines, poles, and those types of things. It was mentioned just a minute ago about some of the power claims that Diane mentioned. We occasionally have people hit our poles, usually after 2 a.m. in the morning after the bars are closed. And those are types of claims and expenses that sometimes we have to write off because people don't have insurance. But for the most part, our claims are based on maybe, an example might be we might have something on the lines that has caused a ground or a phasing problem to go into a house. We might burn up a microwave. We might cause some damage to some of the appliances in a home. If we agree that we're at fault, then we agree to pay those expenses to replace those for people. That's just an example of a property claim, Diane, you might have mentioned earlier. So with that, we have like I said, we have a $37 million budget, revenue budget. I'll turn some time over to Greg, and he will explain some of the line items. I've asked Bruce to talk a little bit about our capital projects, some of the projects that we started with earlier in the year. We've expensed some of them out. We've held off on a few things. And so we want to bring those back to the mayor and council. And maybe this next 6 months, we can catch up on some of that. But our budget is healthy, and we continue to make expenses and a little bit more. And so with that, Greg, if you are on, I believe you are, do you want to maybe present some of the stuff that you've prepared for?
There we go. I think you can hear me now, probably.
We're good to go.
Okay. Council and Mayor, thanks for having us today. So if you'll kind of look at page 78, that's the start of our power department. And this is our revenue sheet. This is where, and if you look, well, so if there's about a third of the way down, residential service. That's about budgeted about 10 million, 10.6 million. Small commercials at 4.8 and large commercials at 17.8. So that's really our main revenue sources are the energy that we sell to our residents. So and if you kind of look at that, just well, let me just give you so historically July. So if you take 12 months and divide it by 100%, it comes out to 8.33% every month. But power doesn't say it's hotter obviously in some months. So July is historically our hottest month, and we get about 10.2% of our revenue that month. August is at 10, September's at 9.5, and then from October to May, it's right in this anywhere from 7.4 to 7.9% of the budget. And then June heats back up again and it's about 9.1%. So if you add those up, historically speaking, we want to be right about 52.6% on our revenue. And we've done pretty well. Large commercials down just a little bit, but still at 49%. So not too big of a concern there. But small commercials at 53% and residentials coming in at about 62%. So revenues are great. Our revenues are looking really well. And But you just have to take into account, we're in the shoulder months right now, even January, but that's January's the cold, I mean, I guess usually the coldest month, but that's our highest at 7.9% of our revenue. So we're looking really good. So the rest of if you add up the rest, it's about 47.4% that we get the rest of the year. So I think we're spot on with our revenues. So if you go from that page, and you can come back and ask questions, but I just wanted to take you to page 82. And so you contrast that with purchase power is 21.2 million of our budget right there. And so if you're going down the second item down, just as a for your information. So CRSP, that's our least expensive resource, and that's the Colorado River Storage Project. That's our hydro. That's our hydropower. We love our hydropower. It's clean, it's renewable. So that being up at 60% is just fine. We're good with that because it is our least expensive resource. And if you just look through there, of course, Craig Mona is usually costs us about $20,000 a year, and we've already taken in $30,000 of revenue for that because we've leased those lines to some people that are wheeling power somewhere. So that's actually turned around as a revenue source for us this year. So that's awesome. And then everything else is just less than, we're doing really well. I mean, our purchase power is right in line. Our revenues are right in line. Our power department, with Blaine taking the lead, we're always very conservative. We always have conservative numbers. Our budget's very conservative. So I think I really don't see any problems in our budget right now. So,
So Greg, the key number you talked about right there is 48%. If you look at the bottom of the resource, with 50% of the year gone, we've spent 48% of our revenue needs. But with the hot months already past us, July and August, that's looking even more favorable to us. We should probably be in the 55% in a normal year. So Greg's numbers are right on.
I have a comment. I see this Transjordan landfill sales,
yes.
$2 million. That's awesome. I didn't realize we received that much from Transjordan.
Yeah, that was a very good, of course, we know that our Transjordan is one of our most expensive resources. So the decision was made years ago to offset that with some sales. And it's working into our favor really well. So we were able to offset that with some of our cheapest resources. So that was a very good move on everyone's part. I think everybody's involved in that decision. So yeah, good point, Diane. Thank you.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Let me just talk about one of the projects we have is our penstock relining. We've had some issues in the past, and so they're taking and relining the entire penstock from the intake down to where we generate power. And it's a big project. It's about $1.2 million, but it's coming along really well. And once that's complete, hopefully that'll give us really good aligning in there that will last for years. And of course, it's a bit of a outlay in money, but it's another resource. Our hydro up in the canyon is, when we have a good water year, it really offsets because it's paid for. It doesn't really cost us a lot other than just some maintenance. So very good resource for us. We love our hydro up Little Cottonwood Canyon. So, but that is a big project that we're in the process of. And I think Aubrey said that's going to be done in the next month or so. Is that right, Blaine? So,
Within 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Excellent.
Yeah, a little bit ahead of time. We're trying to catch the spring runoff on that. If we can get that penstock or that pipe lined and ready, April 1st, theoretically, is the day we receive water from Little Cottonwood Creek. And I don't know what kind of runoff we're going to get this year, but we will have it ready for the runoff this year, yes.
And And outside of that, we don't have a whole lot as far as big projects go. We're just finished up a pole tagging project. We wanted to check every pole in the city and have someone actually visually look and see what's attached, see what's on the pole, check the condition of the pole, and then they actually tag it. So now if someone pulls up and say there's a street light out, they can actually call in a pole tag number instead of saying, oh yeah, it's the third street light down from the corner. So we're pretty excited about that. That did hit our overtime budget just a little bit. We opened that. We want to do that outside of our normal scope of work so that it didn't interfere. So we got help from GIS. They were heavily involved, and quite a few employees from our department. So you might have seen people out on after hours and on weekends, but man, they stepped up, and I was impressed how fast I think we're down to under, out of 6,000 polls, we're down under 1,000 now. So, and it's only been going for a few months. So our department stepped up, and Ben and his GIS guys stepped up. So we're grateful to have that. But if you were looking through our budget, you would notice that there are some overtime budgets that are a little overspent, but that is the reason, just so you know. Any questions?
Greg, let's put a little time to Bruce if we have time. Kat, I think we do. I think we're ahead of time. Bruce, are you prepared to talk a little bit about some of the capital projects that we not put off, but we have delayed, I guess you could say, at the first of the budget year? There's a few things that we have.
Yeah, the biggest one was the Osmos pole testing. We've got 3/4 of the city, the poles tested throughout the city. We've just got a little bit of area left to do, but we budgeted $50,000 a year for that. And I'd like to slip that back into the budget this year if we can and get the rest of the city finished up.
Explain what the test is, Bruce, just real basically. What
So what we do is we hire a private company to come in, and they test the base of the pole that's in the ground. They can test it and see if it's rotten or if it's good, and then give us a report back on that. And also they take pictures of all the poles so that we can put those onto our maps. And that's been really handy in a lot of hit pole situations that we can pull up and look at exactly what was there and what we need to replace. So it's something that's really important to get the north end of town needs to be finished up, and we've got some really old areas up in there that I'd like to get wrapped up. And then there's a few truck purchases that we took out of the budget, and we were going to see if we could get those put back in. We've got 1 or 2 bucket trucks that need to be replaced, and a chipper truck for the tree trimmers, and a couple pickups. Now we may not do them all this year, but we may slide a couple into next year. But the bucket trucks are a minimum of 3 years out.
The manufacture time, 3 years out?
Yes, yep.
Oh.
And what's the amount for the trucks that you would need?
When I originally had them bid out, they were around $200,000, but I'm sure the material cost has gone up dramatically. So I'm not sure right now. We'll have to get them rebid and see where we're at with that.
About 1/4 of the cost of a fire truck. So we're going to play department against department on this, okay? We get 4 for the price of 1.
That's rough. That is rough.
How many trucks are you needing again?
We need at least 1 bucket truck needs to be replaced for sure. It's the one that we mainly use for streetlight repair, but it's a 1973, and we rebuild it twice, and they just don't have the parts anymore to rebuild it again. So it definitely needs to be replaced. And one of the chipper trucks needs to be replaced. It's got some issues with the bed where they put the chips in. It definitely needs to be replaced also.
You're looking at least 2 replacements there.
Yeah, and I think 1 or 2 pickups. There was 1 pickup for sure that needed replaced. But
Another 30, 25.
Yeah.
30. Yeah.
Well, with that bucket truck, that's a safety issue as well, so we ought to
yeah,
look at that.
it's not grounded, but the last time we had it tested, they found some real issues with it that we can't use it working high voltage anymore. So it's basically just grounded to streetlight repair.
Yeah, we had to look real serious at that, especially it's a 3-year window to get a new one.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Greg, do you have anything else to add? Appreciate your comments.
Trying to think if what would. No, I unless, like I said, unless they had any direct questions, I really feel like our budget is intact, and I think we could add what Bruce was just talking about into our budget, and it wouldn't be a problem. Wouldn't impact us to the point where we're still doing really well on some of our power costs. So yeah, I don't see that being a problem. If that's what they decide they'd let us do. So
I have a question, Blaine or Greg. Were those the equipment that you're talking about that Bruce was just referring to? Were those items that were cut out of this year's budget?
Yes. Yeah, we took them out.
I
think the bucket truck might still be in there.
okay, this is what I have listed in your, because I have $642,000 in your equipment budget, and you've only spent 84. But I do have listed a bucket truck, an on-call truck. I got the right budget in front of me.
So,
An engineer.
Brenda, those 2 trucks are carryovers. They carried over from last year, I believe. Because the 1 bucket truck will be taking ownership of next month. That was ordered 2 years ago.
And I have a bucket truck for the 1978 bucket truck. Is that the one from 2 years ago? Or
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
And that's the tree trimmer small bucket truck that they use to do the street trees with.
Mayor, if I remember right, we proposed all this at the initial meeting we had with the budget. And then as other departments were asked to cut and to delay purchases, we also put some stuff on the table that we would delay those purchases. Knowing full well that financially Power could probably do it, I think we were just going along with the rest of the department heads as well. And we could delay that out a year, but it's looking good for us to do that this year.
Okay, well, that's certainly fine with me. I just, that's not what was on the list here, what I was expecting to hear from you today. So, surprise.
Bruce, have we, this 50,000, which I totally agree with you, for the testing poles, has that been done for a long time?
Yeah, we've been doing it for, I think 8 years now. Like I said, we've got 3/4 of the city done. We just need to wrap up a section up in the north end of town.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's huge.
yeah.
Brett, we'll continue to watch that on a rotational basis. Every year we'll do a fifth of the city. I mean, poles rot, and we want to keep it safe.
Well, we appreciate you guys. I mean, you've got a huge budget and you do a great job. So thank you.
Right. Mayor, I think you are correct. I mean, my budget on my CIP, we have a bucket truck for streetlights replacement value of $200,000. I do not believe that was taken out of the budget. So I think it's still there.
well, and if you're going to order the truck and it's going to get here in 3 years, you probably should just order a bucket truck Yes. Boy, 3 years from now, it'll be in the budget.
Well, and I appreciate it coming forward. I think it's important for us to know that it is a safety issue. It's older than us. I mean, older than me. So we should get that replaced. And we shouldn't have to rebuild it over again and over. So, I mean, we have the resources. Let's utilize them.
Thank you, Rosalba.
Dale, did you want to say something? Or
And bite
miss-
my tongue on the age discrimination.
Okay. I saw you looking like you wanted to say something, but I wasn't sure if you were purposefully not saying it or.
And not me. I'm Rosalba's age, so that was spot on.
I mean,
Rosalba.
I love old cars, but when it comes to equipment and keeping our men safe in the power department, let's keep them safe, you know? So I know how much it costs to find parts, and I know how much it costs to actually replicate them for my dad. So let's not do that and get you guys safe.
I have a procedural question, and that is, as we go through and seeing all of these requests and hopes to bring things back to the budget, do we vote on that as a council at the end of this, or do we come back to it? What's that process?
What I will probably ask at the end is just, are you in agreement that we should, I'm planning on just working with Bruce, figuring out what we have in the budget, what needs to be in the budget, what he can get ordered. And, but I'm getting the general feeling about the power equipment that we should start ordering the bucket trucks at least one a year, if not two for 1 year, to get caught up. And because we're going to have to wait 3 years for them anyway. That you guys would be fine with that. And anything else that comes up, we'll just kind of discuss it as it comes. But there is no formal votes, or somebody could change their mind when the budget opening comes forward and you could
Yeah.
vote no.
That's when the vote is actually at when you do a budget opening.
Okay.
I just want
Thank you.
a general idea of what you guys would like to have happen.
Mhm. I just wanted to make sure that as we're comparing cost of everything to fire trucks, that we don't get down to, Danny in Public Works and have agreed that all these other items are things that we agree to be back in, but to tell the last person of the day, sorry. So I wanted to check on our procedure there to make sure I was in line with it. All right. Anything else from Power that we need to hear? This is all really great information. No.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Kat. Had to catch the mute button. Thank you.
Thank you, and good to see you, and thanks everyone for joining and giving us all that important information and perspective. We appreciate it. I got a text from Jennifer that she can jump in now and is ready so that we can kind of get back on schedule, but sneak her in if everyone's okay with that. And we'll start with our question of what page are we on?
Okay,
I
so we know you more.
believe it's page 33.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, so in looking over the council's budget, we wanted to ask for some additional money for professional services. We're anticipating the rest of our meetings this year are going to be online and will need to be streamed through Zoom. So we're going to need Bill's help for that. So we're anticipating 3 additional budget meetings for the department heads to talk to the council about what budget needs they have, and then 1 budget reconciliation meeting, as well as a council workshop, and we're hoping to have a joint planning commission and city council meeting. And then the diversity and inclusion task force, we're anticipating them to have 2 meetings. So the total amount we're asking for professional services for live streaming is $2,500. And the council chambers is also getting wired to hold those meetings. And I believe, I'm not sure on this, but I think it was $1,000. And I think Brenda said we could maybe use CARES money for that because it's anticipation of bringing people back into the chambers as well as live streaming the Zoom meetings. And the only other thing we looked at was on our miscellaneous budget. With the anticipation of having fun days, we would need about $1,000 to buy candy prior to the end of this fiscal year for that parade. And that's all I had unless there's questions.
Just so you're aware, I'm also planning on increasing the budget for regular employees because of the dual council directors right now. I already have it kind of mapped out what we will need to do to kind of increase the wages for the council for this year to offset the 2 people in 1 job for a month. So that's already on my radar.
Thank you, Brenda.
Quick question for the fun days. Is that still for July? Is that this year's budget or next year?
So we have to purchase the candy before the end of June. So it would be in this fiscal year.
Okay. I just wasn't clear on that. All right. Thank
If
you.
she doesn't spend it, it'll just get rolled back into reserves. So I don't think she's going to purchase it if there's going to be no parade.
That would be correct.
Never specifically thought of the cost of taffy. This was the line item I hadn't thought about, but I'm really excited about it. Any other questions, concerns, Dale?
Yeah, you just haven't been in a parade. The cost of not having taffy is much higher than the cost of having
Oh,
taffy.
just gonna say that. You hit that on the head.
All right. Thanks for sneaking in there for us, Jennifer.
Hey, you're welcome.
And I think I saw Rob on early. If he's still here and willing to go a little early, we'll give him a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need to change that background. Excuse me.
It's amazing.
My apologies.
That's all right. Thanks for jumping in early with us. And we'd just
No
love to hear
problem.
about what's going on in IT.
Things have been pretty status quo. Our funds, as you look, they're pretty much spot on.
What's our page number?
Oh, our page number is page
48.
48.
48 and 49. And I'll wait till you guys can get there. Brett, you're there? Is everybody there? Great. So as you look on there, our software and equipment maintenance are our highest as far as costs, and we're just about right on target. We've had some expenditures come up for software that were a little bit unforeseen, but we were able to absorb those costs. Probably next year we'll look at something of an amendment, but so far that I can see, even in the GIS, if you look over to the GIS page 49, we're just about spot on there. We've done the renewals for CityWorks and for the Esri product, and so I think we're okay there. The equipment maintenance, we're doing pretty good. We have some funds available, but see, a lot of these things, they look like they're, there's quite a bit left, and then towards about June, we have a whole bunch of renewals that we have to do prior to the end of fiscal year, and so it immediately we use up the remaining funds. But so far, that's kind of where we're at. I know that we were asked if we could have some funds back. I would request that we would put it back into the small equipment. At this point, we want to keep up. If we have to do any kind of rotation, we need to keep up on the police, because obviously those laptops get hammered from, change of weather, heat, and cold. And so we're trying to keep up on those rotations, because when they start to fail, it's usually all at once, and it can be very, very frustrating for the police and us waiting for parts to come in that we have to order. And so if we could, I'd like to put back close to like 100,000 into the small equipment so that we could replace the police laptops. And then because of this COVID, we handed out 7 and 8 year old laptops for working at home and for things like that. So we like to probably get some new ones replaced in the laptops for the city employees and for the directors for having really old laptops.
Will CARES funding pay for that?
I don't know. Brenda, will CARES funding pay for that?
If the director already has a laptop, no, because you're just replacing an old laptop with the new laptop. I have had the CARES funding change some people out from desktops to laptops, and it will cover that.
What about police? The police?
No, they
equipment?
always have laptops. So
Patrol cars all have laptops, obviously, in their patrol cars. And actually, we've switched out the majority of all desktops so that when patrol officers come off of patrol and they go into detectives, they take the laptop with them, and then they use that same laptop in the detective's office as well. And then when they leave detectives and they go back to patrol, they take the laptops with them. And so we're just trying to keep that rotation going because 4 or 5 years ago, when we took this program back from the police department back into IT, we started to having to try to get that program going for the rotation to make sure that we keep up on those. And so that's kind of
the CARES funding won't pay for the rotation
not
for the upgrades for the police then?
No.
Okay.
not directly.
Darn it.
If I could just make a comment about the CARES funds, just to clear it up. So the city has already received the CARES funds, and for the majority of it have credited it towards the police and fire costs. So when you talk about can the CARES funds pay for whatever that is, what you're really talking about doing is taking the money from the police and fire and transferring it to IT, public works, something like that. So it doesn't result in a net increase or decrease from the city's general fund. It just means you're taking money away from police and fire and moving it to IT, which if that's what you want to do, you can do that, but then you're decreasing the revenue in the police side. So essentially it's more or less a wash right now, if that makes sense. So that's why it doesn't matter whether the CARES funds can pay for it or not, because we already have that money.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you, Doug.
So Brenda, it's just, and Doug, it's just all, like you said, it's all indirectly. If you can't call it directly, but indirectly, we're all covered.
Yeah, indirectly we are covered. And we did pull 160,000 from small equipment's budget. I think might even have been slightly more than that.
It was 170,000.
Yeah, 170,000 from his budget. So he's asking for 70 of it back. I think that's probably pretty good, because I'm guessing that if you don't order the laptop soon, we're not going to even get them till next year anyway, and then we're going to be even further behind.
And that is my concern. Then I'd probably ask for more funds the next year to replace the ones that we didn't do this year. So it's just going to be a domino effect. And so it would be good to do that. Also, that would allow us to replace, with that 100,000, we'd be able to replace a server that is about 9 years old. And so we need to pull that one out and get that one replaced. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Rob, how many laptops does that cover for replacement every year?
Well, so In the police department, there's the motors cops, and they have what are called the ruggedized, and they're literally inside a gel form, so that way because they get bounced around. Those are about $5,000 a piece, and we try to replace 2 of those, 1 to 2 of those a year, just for those. And then the laptop, the police, we usually try to get about 20 to 25 laptops replaced in the police department per year and rotating those out. Like I said, because of the hot and the cold and winters and the environment, those laptops can disintegrate very quickly due to the weather changes. And including in that is also printer replacements in the police car and the patrol cars too. Should they fail, we can replace a few of those as well.
Thank you. That's just good to know. I can't imagine with the wear and tear and the heat and the cold. I know just in the office I work in during the day, we've had multiple laptops with like exploding batteries lately, and they just live inside in the nice warm desk environment. So
yeah, imagine being out there in the patrol car when it's 100 degrees out. It's 130, 140 in that patrol car if it's turned off and the windows are up. And you are absolutely right. Those hard drives in CPUs will expand or close to explode. So.
Yeah.
Kat, I have heard that my whole life, and I don't even know what it means. When you say explodes, it just like...
Their battery is expanding, and so where your little mouse is on your laptop raises up, and the battery gets really hot. And
it starts to separate.
I hear it's fine.
Keyboard, yeah, the whole keyboard mount starts to separate.
Wow.
The battery becomes engorged.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that information, Rob.
Thank you.
Any other questions or exploding computers or technical concerns while we've got him here?
I have a question. I know costs for equipment and stuff is going up and increasing. Is equipment for IT increasing? Do you know?
So because of the question is that I'm thinking we might be able to go status quo on the equipment maintenance because when we switched our utility billing system, we switched it off an old system, and that's the AS400. I'm hoping our projection is to be able to migrate the remaining data off that server and turn it off. And so the cost for that server, we would not have to pay the maintenance on that and software maintenance because it's an IBM server. Those, because it has the IBM logo, are very, very expensive to maintain. So we should be able on the equipment to absorb that. Small equipment, we're probably going to have to increase the budget because of cost, because China and parts coming in and everything is going up on the small equipment for replacements for next year. We're probably going to have to increase that budget. And then software maintenance, when we go over that next year in a few months, I'll explain why we're probably going to have to increase that as well. But for now, the equipment maintenance, there are two kinds. There's the equipment maintenance, which is existing equipment maintenance, and then small equipment is laptops, desktops, monitors, PCs, and as such. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I know China plays a big factor into this when it comes to equipment for computers. And so I was just wanting to make sure that we look at that for the future. And even now, I mean, if it's going to affect and buying equipment, if you need a little bit more to better understand that may increase depending on what you find out. So
it possibly could, depending on costs coming in, because the majority of all.
Oh, did he freeze? I think so.
I'm not sure how long to see if he comes back. Rob, we lost you if you can hear us.
It's a little ironic that IT freezes up, isn't it?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's a little on the nose.
There.
Well,
Looks like everybody in the office.
He's just in shock. He is in shock.
oh yeah, everybody in City Hall,
Are they all frozen?
their pictures are all gone and they're all,
Oh, they
we've
are.
lost City Hall.
Oh, wow.
There's our meeting.
Totally lost them. Okay.
I guess.
Well, we have 15 minutes before the next one. So should we take a 15-minute break?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Come back at 2. And Bill, if you can hear us, we don't know if you're out there, but we're going to take a 15-minute break and we'll be back at 2.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
When you're ready, we can go live again. Let's do it. All right. We took a brief break, but we are back and starting out with the police department, and we'll turn it over to Chief Burnett to tell us about his budget, how they're doing, and what they need.
Okay, thank you. We took what we were needed to do this last year, not knowing what was going on with the economy and the cuts in the budget, and we've worked real hard up to this point to stay within the budget that we were given. And I think we've done a really good job controlling some of our costs, and I'm not concerned that we're over in anything dramatically at the moment. There are a couple of areas that I have some concern with because we still have pretty much half the year to go. And so I'll just talk about those 3 areas that I see a little concern with. The first is our overtime budget. We did cut some money out of our overtime budget. Currently, we're probably around 50% or less of our budget available now. I think the thing that kind of concerns me there is since the 1st of June, with the things that have gone on and changes around the country and some of the things that have happened, we've lost 4 police officers. And so we've been hiring, we're training, we have people in the academy, but those are positions that we have to occasionally cover with overtime. So that's kind of eating into some of our overtime, as well as some of the big cases that we've dealt with recently with the homicide and a couple of other things that have eaten up a lot of overtime. So a little concerned that as the next few months go on and we're still in training with some of these officers that haven't got out on the road yet and probably won't until late some of them won't be out of the academy until March, so won't have them available much before June. So we will have still some positions that we will be required to backfill, and that's going to impact our overtime more than what we've had in the past. We had 3 unexpected retirements and 1 officer who had about 3 years who decided to get out of law enforcement this last summer. So that's the one area that we have some concerns with. The other would be our training budget. We took some cuts to the training budget. We've really restricted a lot of the excessive and out-of-town training, but we're looking at some of the training that we're going to be required to do, and just things that are important that we have our officers trained, that we could use that allocation to be what it had originally been, what we'd originally asked for, to give us a little more leeway to make sure that our officers are properly trained and the certifications are up. Other than that, most of our budget line items, the ones that have been spent out, that's the way they always are. It's things we need to purchase up front early in the year, whether it be items for the training center or firearms, tasers. A lot of those kind of things are purchases that are made early on. In our CIP, we were allocated for 4 vehicles, which are on order. I think they should be here by the 1st of February. Concern is that, not being able to replace more than 4 or 5 vehicles this year is going to put us farther behind in the next few years with some of our vehicles. So, that's another area that we feel that if at all possible, we'd like to be able to see some help in our vehicle or purchasing. So, really, that's kind of where I see my budget right now. And other than that, I'm not seeing any concerns or anything that we're worried about right now. Obviously, there's things that we'll look at for the upcoming budget next year to make sure that some of the areas that we took a cut that whether we need to talk about that later. But right now we're okay because we made arrangements and our allowances for that this year. Any questions?
Can I go ahead? Okay. So you said 4 vehicles, and I know that was a huge thing when Diane and I were here, and when the vehicles, we got behind on them, and that was not a good thing. So are you wanting more than 4? Are you feeling that it's important to get more than 4 with this year?
Well, we usually average and try to, obviously as funding allows, we like to try to replace 10 to 12 vehicles a year. These cars are going at least 5+ years, so it's not like we're getting the life out of our cars. We had some money put back into the CIP this year as well, or back into our equipment, so we were able to pick up 2 unmarked cars. So we're right now at 6 for this year, besides the 2 we have ordered. And the importance for that was we were able to take a couple of vehicles that were less used and passed down to our victim advocates who are driving 15-year-old vehicles. So, I guess our concern is mostly with the patrol cars. If we could get, another 3 or 4 patrol cars, that'd give us, 7 or 8 as opposed to the 12 or 12 10 to 12 that we usually would get. But it allows us not to have to worry about a few years down the road or even next year trying to manage cars that are 6 years old and still have cars that are 7 and 8 years old that are being used every day for patrol. So, yeah, it's.
So you're hoping to get 8 cars is what you're hoping.
Well, that would be ideal if we were able to, or whatever we would be allowed to do. I think anything that we're able to do to try to replace. We're still trying to replace a couple of our 2013s and some of our 2014s. So that kind of gives you an idea of the cars we're replacing in patrol are 7, 8 years old. And the fact the officers have their own cars, they take care of them, they're responsible for them. We get a lot of use out of those cars. So we're able to get, the 7 years out of a car, but when they start to get that old, maintenance starts to get high and there's a lot of issues that go with the cars. And, rather than trying to replace the farther we get behind, the farther we stay behind down the road. We never can really catch up completely, but we do the best we can.
So my question is, how much total are we wanting to put back into your budget?
Well, I'd like to see
Or do we know? I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the overtime, we had $13,000 that had been cut from our budget, and our travel and training, there was $7,000. So, I mean, those are the 2 that we kind of looked at. And then for vehicles, those, I think we've been budgeting in order to buy the vehicle, and they're all getting a little more expensive, but we budget about $37,000 a vehicle. That helps with purchasing the vehicle and the equipment that goes into them. We usually get the cars for around $30,000, and then there's between $7,000 and $8,000 worth of equipment that goes into the vehicle. Depends on what it's used for. So that, I'm just saying that whatever would work out to, whatever you want to look at, that part I haven't really given it a dollar amount. That would be.
So just for information, we pulled or did not fund $292,000 worth of police cars. That is in capital projects, so that's different than the general fund. And personally, I'd be comfortable giving the chief back in capital projects, get those ordered. I have a feeling he won't get them until the beginning of next year, just from the lead time. All the factories in the world are having trouble with COVID, so I don't know what the 37,000 times however many cars would roll out to be. If his overtime continues at the trend it is right now, he's going to be approximately $40,000 under budget or over budget. I can move some of the CARES budget up into his overtime to just make sure he stays even, because we can say some of this overtime is due to COVID. And we are keeping a lot of it for police and fire presumption anyway. So I'm not concerned too much about that budget if you're okay with me just reallocating where the budget is. We did cut $7,000 from his travel and training.
I think it's very important we give him the overtime budget so we have the coverage we need for the city and the training, because we need to have our men and women in uniform trained up to the latest techniques, everything we can do to keep them trained and keep them safe. And the same thing goes with cars. We expect them to go out in 7-year-old vehicles. We expect them to respond to our needs. We need to do everything we can to keep them going. We also lose money on trade-ins the further they go. So, it's a catch-22, but I think anything we can, I think we need to definitely take care of the overtime and the training budgets. And then if Brenda feels good and the rest of us do, let's get some cars ordered too, so we don't fall behind like we did before and have huge maintenance bills and substandard cars to put these men and women in.
Yeah, I was going to say with the way things are going in terms of equipment and cars, it might be best to do it now versus later, because it could be a lot higher if we were to do that and do them all at once.
Yes.
Which is what I understand happened before, right? We got a whole fleet of cars all at the same time.
Yes.
We bought
It was a lot of
2 years
money.
worth in 1 year. I think we got 24. And right now, the 4 that we have on order, they've been on order since late summer, early fall, and they only manufacture the police package vehicles 2 or 3 times a year. So we just get them when they come out. And so the ones we ordered late summer, we anticipate getting within the next couple of weeks. So we would still be waiting probably till July, but that puts us at least ahead of what we'd be this time next year trying to get out of next year's budget. So it's always playing that play ahead game.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Brenda. If you feel comfortable yourself, I'm comfortable with doing whatever we can on the vehicles as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify, and I totally agree with the issues of safety on all fronts. But so do the vehicles, those come from the CIP? Is that right, Brenda?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so those come from the CIP. Some of the CARES money will help with the overtime.
Yes.
And then there's the training. And training is super, super important. So I'm all for that. Just as a point of information, Chief, as far as travel goes, are they doing in-person training, or is it all online still?
Vast majority has been virtual. There are some that have started up with some online training, at least projected out this spring. So the vast majority of the training we're doing is online. We are doing some of our department training in person, because some has to happen. Some of this training has to happen in person. So there is some in-person training. But there isn't any travel. We're not sending anybody out of state anywhere right now.
Well, thank you. That's just great to hear. And we're all getting more creative at how to do trainings digitally. But yeah, there's some some things you have to do in person. Is any other questions or anything else you'd like to tell us, Chief?
No, those were just my concerns, and I think we've been doing the best we can to try to stay within the budget that we've been given. So it's been a little challenging as it is for everybody, but I think we're doing okay.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Rosalba.
I had one last question. How long does it take to train a new cadet?
Well, the new officers, it depends on what we're able to get. If we hire somebody who is certified, which means they've been through the academy and they have their post certification, it takes about 3 months to have them ready to go out on the road and take a position. We have 2 that we just hired. That they need the second part of the academy, so they started in January and they'll be out in March. So that's about a 3-month time, or 2.5 months of training, and then there'll be another 3 months of field training. So, if we hire them green and they have to go through the academy, it could be anywhere from 6 to 9 months. And we've been pretty lucky being able to hire some that have either had some certification or have their certification. We've hired 3. One, he was certified. He's in FTO right now, other than he's dealing with some post-COVID issues, so he's not able to work the road. So we're still working with him on that. So, but it's anywhere from 3 to 9 months, depending on the level of people we hire.
I was just curious so we can help get you the support you need.
Takes a little time. That's the thing. We're all worried about, all the chiefs. If you have to send someone through the full academy, it's pretty much a year before they really are helping us out.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate answering my questions. I appreciate you.
Chief, I'm just wondering, how has the response been when you've had to replace the officers that have left? What kind of response have you had in terms of people interested in applying?
This summer was interesting. The numbers have dropped to some degree, but the people we've been getting, I was very considering that we had 4 openings, only 3 that we're filling right now. That we were able to find some very good qualified candidates. So there are good people there that are wanting to get into the job, but the interest is definitely not there right now. So we're kind of seeing how that goes over the next little while. But this summer it was real difficult to get a lot of people who wanted to apply.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that all across the board. And
well, thanks for all you do, and good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Last chance for questions. Okay, well, thank you so much, Chief, for the information and for working, we know, in a very, very difficult year with a difficult budget and all sorts of challenges. And just, we see that. And thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, next up, we're talking about the library. And I think I saw that Kim was logged on early. So we'll give her a moment if she is ready and able to speak with us now.
76.
76, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we'd love to hear about how the library's doing, how your budget's doing, and what you need.
All right, so I feel like our budget is doing pretty well. We don't really have any areas of concern at this point. One of the things that we have found is because we are not using as much of our part-time help, that we are well below our numbers in that particular line. And we are looking forward to a time when we can bring more of our part-time people back. Right now we have 4 of them working. So, but other than that, the only other challenges we're facing is just a kind of a supply and demand type of challenge, and that we are attempting to buy like DVDs and books, and our suppliers are not always able to give us things. The DVDs are hard because basically the movie industry shut down, and so there are not a lot of new releases happening. So our plans are with some of that money that we're not spending because there's just nothing to purchase at the moment, is to use that more for our electronic resources, our ebooks and audiobooks, because those are in very high demand. And so that really is probably the only changes we'll make, and that will just be like a transfer that we can just do within our budget. We don't have to do anything extra with that. So we'll just be shifting some funds to cover where things are more in demand and with things that we can't actually get right now. So that's really the only thing that's happening with us. We're pretty boring.
Any questions or anything anyone would like to say or ask about the library? Getting some thumbs up. I'll say my kids thought it was pretty magical that there was a mailbox for Santa right outside the library, and they just thought that was very efficient. They're worried about shipping times, and they felt very confident that they could put it in there and it would arrive on time.
To Santa. Did you happen to get a chance to chat with Santa through the library?
No, I can't find my library card.
Oh, no.
And I was like, I should just call Kim, but we ended up calling with some cousins another way, but they just thought dropping off the letters there was the absolute best. You have such variety of services, and it's been really impressive to see how the library continues to build community in a time where I feel that's really difficult.
Thank you. We try hard. It is a difficult, it's a challenge for sure.
All right, well, I don't see anyone reaching for their unmute. So if you don't have anything else you want to share with us, then you are done, Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, it is 2:23. We have a break scheduled until 3. We have over a half hour until our next one. Do we have anyone on who wants to go early? I don't see anyone. All right. Well, we are just running so fast. Brett, do you have a suggestion?
Oh, I just keep thinking someone's going to pop on. There's Jennifer. I knew someone was going to pop on.
I'm here. I would be happy to go ahead and discuss my budget if you'd like.
We would love that. If you'll just tell us what page to start on, that would be delightful.
I have it marked. So the mayor's office budget is page 35. Okay, we're all there. So I think mine is
like. We would love that. If you'll just tell us what page to start on, that would be delightful.
I have it marked. Did you hear that playback?
I did.
I'm going to try again.
That was weird. I thought weird. Jennifer already said that.
I was like, did we lose the internet again? I was ready to cry. Okay.
I think we're good. So the mayor's office budget, it will probably go just as quickly as Kim's did for the library. We had a few things that were cut initially going into the budget year, but we've managed to stay within our budget. The only thing that you'll notice is just our books and subscriptions is kind of high. That's because I have a subscription now to a new software that we're using for an e-newsletter program that we launched this spring. And I just wanted to make sure it's being paid out of the correct line item. We'll be able to make that up from one of our other lines, an easy transfer. But beyond that, there really have not been significant changes. Like all other departments, there was not much travel or training for us this year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm laughing at that because am I reading that right, Jennifer? It's 279%, but it's $332.
Exactly.
Yeah, those percentages don't mean a lot.
No, they don't. They look a lot worse than they really are.
If we worry about those percentages over $332, that's our problem. Thanks, Jennifer. You guys are awesome.
You bet. Any other questions?
Anybody? All right. Well, thanks for jumping in to go early. That was great, even though we had a little haunted Zoom moment, but I think we're okay now. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, and Melinda just popped in and said she'd be happy to go early. So if we're all right, we'll continue on with community and economic development and hear how their budget's going and what they have to tell us.
Okay, so my budget starts on, it's PDF page 54, which is page 51 if it's printed out. So the 1301 is the community development, the administration. And there's really nothing to me that stands out or, on this. We're pretty much in line with where we should be. So I don't know if there's any questions you have on this particular department. Oh, that's weird. I had it streaming up on my screen. And my voice was delayed. Anyway, that was just weird. So if there's no questions on this fund, I can just move on to 1306, which is the building division.
Really quick, was there something in the beginning, Brenda, that you said we would come back to? In this section?
Yeah, that's in the building division. So the next page, the 1306, the building division. We have had actually 3 vacancies in my department that have allowed for some significant salary savings. But the trade-off to that is we've had to contract services out for inspections and plans examining. And so the professional services line down in the second section under operations, the 4,300 is over budget. It's at 146%. So the good news is that we believe the salary savings will make up for the increase that we have spent in the professional services. So overall, that fund should be okay in the end. If it's not, then we'll have to, when it's closer towards the end of the year and we have a better picture of how it's going to look, we would have to do some type of a budget amendment. But the building permit fees that come into the city are what pays for this fund. So in essence, this is a self-supporting fund. But we've just had to make that trade-off of we've still had to process plans, examinations, and go out on inspections. And we've had a contract inspector assigned to us who's been working full-time for us since really probably last May. And then we're contracting out some of our plans examining service too. So we will be filling one of those positions. We'll be underfilling actually one of those positions within the next couple of weeks. And so whereas the vacancy was created by an inspector 3, we'll be able to fill that with an inspector 1. And that should alleviate some of the costs with the professional services, but it's still until that new hire gets trained and really up to speed, you'll continue to see those professional services line items go much higher than what we had budgeted for. So that was the main thing with this fund that we wanted to point out.
Melinda?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why you're not replacing the positions?
So essentially, building inspectors are very difficult to come by right now. There's been a lot of retirements in the last few years. There's not people that are entering the building inspection field. What has ended up happening is that most cities have really kind of just pilfered, I guess, employees from each other. One of our employees that left last April went to another city that was offering to pay him substantially more than what his years of experience realistically should have allowed his salary to be. And it was something we felt like we just couldn't justify to pay, a 3 or 4 year inspector at the top of a range. So the few candidates that we have had, we did hire someone earlier this year, ended up not being a good fit for us and for him, and he chose to leave. And it's just really a lot of cities. If you go look at the League of Cities and Towns, and there are always listings for building officials, building inspectors, and they're just very difficult to hire. So it's an industry-wide issue. We just also had somebody from another city apply, and we told him what our hiring range would be based on that experience. And he was like, well, I'm not going to come over for that much money because I know I could go here and make that much more money. So it's just been a challenging thing for the last several years for many cities. So in fact, right now, I guess there's 6 different inspection positions listed on the league's website, but it's been something that, years and years ago, they used to have kind of like an apprenticeship program that the state allowed, and that was done away with many years ago. And people just aren't really interested, I guess, in getting in the profession, which is sad because you really can make I think a really great wage and a good living without having to do any type of college education. You just have to be able to study and pass the tests and know the material. So that's kind of a long explanation, but it's really an industry-wide problem. And I don't see that getting any better anytime soon.
Is there anything at Salt Lake Community College? Any classes there that you might recruit from?
Yeah, we could. I'll tell you, it was a decision made before I started working here, but some of the longtime inspectors that Murray City had retired, and they couldn't find people to fill the positions, and so they brought on a couple of young people younger in their career that had some type of a background with building. One had his electrical license, and another one who's still with us, his dad is a building inspector. So we chose to, and that was, I think, probably 4 years ago, we chose to hire them and kind of mentor them and bring them along. So because we just weren't getting the candidates that had the experience in the background. Another challenge, and to answer that question too, is we could look to maybe like construction management type of programs, but oftentimes those folks can go work in construction and make a lot more money initially than they can working as an inspector for a city. And so, the trade-off comes really kind of more years into your career where you're making more money because you're experienced enough to be at that inspector 2 or 3 level, and the benefits and the opportunities that city brings versus, and the stability that a city job can bring versus a construction job. But the construction industry itself too has had a big shortage of workers. I think actually one of the ordinances that Dale had brought forward kind of helped address some of that with shopping local. But it's just, construction is hard. They can make more money doing that than working for a city. And when you're young, it's easy to see that versus the, long-term career goals and retirement. So.
Yeah, I just think it's right now really important. Those positions are really important. We're going to be having a lot of construction. So anyway, good luck.
Thanks. So the next budget would just be the 1307, which is the planning and business license division. There's really nothing on there that causes too much concern. There is the vehicle maintenance line is quite a bit over, but the rest of the fund is okay. Sometimes you can't anticipate what you'll need on a vehicle, so we're over on that line, but everything else looks all right. So if there's any questions on the planning and business license, I'd be happy to try and answer those.
Will you be okay with like supplies since you're at 75, or is that just?
I think so, because we also had a little bit of salary savings in that fund because we had a vacancy that we didn't fill until like September, I think is when, August or September. So I think we will be okay. We'll just kind of watch that, and if we are going to have issues, then we'll work with Brenda to bring a small budget amendment on that fund, but I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
So then, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just seeing if there are any other questions, but go ahead.
I was just going to move on to the RDA if there weren't any other questions. So, okay. So the RDA, let's see, and that it starts on page 54 of the printed one and then 57 on the PDF. So really the RDA, we haven't had any real expenses at all this year above and beyond what we normally have, which is the TIF payments. I did mention in my update with the RDA board last week, or it was last week, that we will have a payment coming out of the fund, that $200,000 that goes to Public Works for the road, and then the extra $75,000 that'll go to the developer. But that's really, I think, the biggest thing that we'll have going on with the RDA fund, at least for the next foreseeable while. And if there's anything other that we would need, we would come to the RDA board with that. So I don't know if there's any questions about the RDA, or Brenda, if you have anything you wanted to add about that.
No. All right. Mayor, did you want to add anything to the RDA or anything beyond what Melinda shared?
I don't, not at this time, thank you. Other than to note that that any review would need to be done officially in an RDA meeting. But as far as what she's presented, it's pretty basic. So thank you.
I just didn't want to skip over you when your name's officially on the agenda. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Melinda, anything else that you want to share on these?
No, I don't think so. Just we have some of the simpler budgets in the city, so
Well, thank you for jumping in early. We appreciate your flexibility.
No problem.
And it was good seeing you.
Thanks.
All right. So before we jump in, I think I saw that Kim's on for parks, but before we jump over to that, we had an official break scheduled in 5 minutes. Do we need to stick to that strictly? Or since we took an unexpected 20-minute break, do we want to keep going with who's here as they're here? And then if someone wants to take a break, we can do that?
I'm good with that.
You're okay? I see Diane shaking her head. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, Kim, if you are on and ready to share, we'd love to hear how Parks and Rec's doing, facilities, and how your budget is and what you need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kat. So we'll start with page 64, which is the Parks Division. I'll give you a moment to get there. Okay, so with revenue, as Brenda spoke earlier, our revenue across the line is down, across the board is down, with the exception of the cemetery and the golf course. So I won't talk a lot about revenue unless you have specific questions. With the parks budget, expenses with personnel and operations is down a little, and that's to be expected, or underspent a little, and that's to be expected. If you look, we haven't spent money on fun days. We didn't have a fun days last year. I will tell you that we have already ordered the float for this year, so we will be purchasing a float for fun days this year. If we do not have fun days, which we are planning on having, we will use that in 2022. So and then training and some of our other areas, there just hasn't been opportunities for training with our parks department. We've continued to do in-house training and some online courses, but not much has been available there. So that budget is about where you would expect it to be. I'll move on to the next unless somebody has specific questions about the Parks Division. Okay, the next is page 65. And this is the capital CIP for the parks. And I'll talk about what we've been doing this year. And then at the end, I'll talk about some of our concerns, if that's okay, Kat. All right, with the parks, some of the larger projects that you probably have interest in, Pavilion 5, the weather has been optimal for Pavilion 5 construction. They poured the footings last week, and we'll finish pouring the footings hopefully this week if the weather cooperates, if not next week. And we are scheduled for completion sometime in the latter part of March with Pavilion 5. Winchester Playground, that's the Boulder Playground at Winchester Park is in and installed. We're waiting for warm temperature so that we can pour the poured-in-place surfacing. We expect that to happen as soon as temperatures are about 50 degrees and not going down below 40 at night. The pool parking lot, that will be started here shortly. We have a plan for the parking lot now, and it will be completed by May 1st in time for the outdoor pool opening the end of May. So that's the Parks Division. The next page, page 66, is the Park Center. And again, as you can imagine, Park Center's revenue is down. And the reason I bring it up again is we do have some concerns with the revenue for the foreseeable future. We're not seeing the influx of people or really seeing many people renewing for their New Year's resolutions this year. So when things do break and people are wanting to get out, we're going to have to be creative getting them back to the Park Center. And we're starting to plan that now. So the Park Center is open. We're open, but limited use. Our weight rooms and our swimming pool and our gymnasium, we have maximum capacities that are a lot less than normal, but we are accommodating those people that do want to get in and continue to use the Park Center. Which means that our revenue is down, but we're still spending the money to stay in operation. Our operations side, we are down about 14%, which again, you would expect. We were closed for several months. Any questions with the Park Center? Okay, the next one is page.
Oh, sorry, I had a question.
Uh-huh.
Will we see an uptick in cost or revenue with Junior Jazz? Will that go into the Park Center? No.
No.
Okay.
That's a good question. Now, Junior Jazz is ongoing right now, and we are basically allowing each participant to bring in one spectator. So we're limiting the people that are in there, and it's not costing us any more money to do that or staffing. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, page 67 is recreation. Expenses for recreation, as you can imagine, we are way below normal budget. We're 34% below. That is simply explained because we were closed for several months. We didn't offer activities. We didn't offer leagues and sporting events. We are getting close to normal. We have Junior Jazz going on and pickleball and adult basketball, and we are planning regular spring activities where we can. So that's where we would expect to be under the circumstances. Any questions on recreation? Okay, page 68 is arts and history. Very similar to recreation. Our revenues are way down and our expenses are down. We have been, Lori and Katie have been doing a number of virtual classes, virtual programs. They continue to be very, I guess, aggressive where they can be and constructive where they can be. We are starting to plan for fun days, as I mentioned, and we are hopeful for fun days. We are also planning for our regular season at the outdoor amphitheater with concerts. We, of course, are adjusting the agreements to allow for a clause that we can cancel if need be without expenses to the city. So any questions on arts and history? Okay, page 69 is the outdoor pool. The outdoor pool was open for most of the year, but capacity levels were way down. So this is about where you would expect as well. The COVID protocol that we had at the outdoor pool did mean that we needed to have extra employees monitoring the numbers and the door or the gate, if you would. But still, our expenses are in line with where they should be. So, any questions with the outdoor pool?
I'm just noticing it just seems like that you guys have done awesome during this time, even though numbers are way down. You're only off a little, so looks great, Kim.
Right. Senior Recreation Center, that is page 70. Again, it's very similar to the others. Revenue's way down. Our expenses are down. Now, we don't have, just so you know, we don't have our full-time personnel just hanging out at the Senior Rec Center hoping to open. We have one that's working at the cemetery. We have two that have been working with our museum cataloging, and that has been good as far as cataloging the museum artifacts and different things. And then we've had others working in the parks as well. But they are trying. Our poor seniors really want to. They want to get out. They want to do something. They want to visit and see their friends. So we are doing what we can as far as virtual programs. We offered a car bingo throughout the summer. We're offering tax services still. We still do some box lunches. And then our senior staff is also reaching out to all of our seniors at least twice a month, just on telephone to say hi. And it's time consuming, but I think it's very important for those that we serve at the senior center. So, and again, we are anxious to open up the senior center. We just don't know when that will be. Any questions on senior center?
No, I just want to tell you, you've got an excellent crew working there. They do a great job, and they're very, very concerned about their clientele. They are good people.
Thank you, and I agree with you. They're a wonderful staff. The next one is page 71. This might be my favorite budget to present to you today. I get to say that it's status quo in revenue and expenses. We're right where we would expect to be. Cemetery hasn't been impacted too much with COVID. Any questions on cemetery?
Kim, remind me. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I'll wait, Rosalba.
No, go ahead, Brett.
Kim, remind me. Thanks, Rosalba. Remind me as far as plots go or niches. I know we're full. Are we 100%?
So we have no burial plots. We have no burial plots available. If you remember, we did put in the niche last year, and we have plenty of niche space available for those.
We do have plenty of those. Okay. Thanks.
Rosalba, did you have a question?
Yeah. So I was just curious, as I was passing by recently, do we provide a service to do flowers or keep up the maintenance? I mean, is that a charge, or is that just with the burial fees or the burial plot cost?
So there's a perpetual care cost when you bury, when you use a plot, and that is with the intent to go to future maintenance. But we don't charge for people that put flowers on. What we do is we allow flowers to be put on graves, and then we have certain dates where we pick up the flowers so that they just don't sit there and become dead and unsightly.
I guess what I mean is if we could provide that service, if that's something that we've ever thought of. Or...
You're asking is can someone, if they're in a different state, pay for a flower and we'll put it on grave?
Right.
We don't as a city, but there are flower companies that do that, but we don't as a city, no.
All right. Thank you. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the flowers we see are people that provided them themselves. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I know there's some private services, so you may have some out there that are put in by flower companies and plant companies, but the city doesn't offer that service.
I was just thinking, how do we generate more revenue into something that we may not continue to get if we sell all our niches? Just thinking outside of the box. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next one is page 72. That is facilities. And Jeff and his crew have been impacted tremendously with COVID, with keeping up with sanitizing buildings before and after positive tests and changing out fixtures to touchless fixtures. So this is a budget similar to the cemetery that is right in line with expenses and operations. I will touch on a few of the things that they've done this year with their CIP money. City Hall had an air conditioner go out. You probably didn't notice since you're not or weren't meeting, but those that worked in City Hall were thankful that we were able to replace that. He had a pickup truck that he just recently picked up. And then the mansion roof, if you haven't been by the mansion roof and rain gutters were replaced. We are currently in the process of doing some renovation with the mansion, getting it ready to move the museum over in a few years. And then there's been some boilers and some strainers at the aquatic center that Jeff has also replaced. So any questions with facilities? All right, the next one is golf, page 73. The first one you see is revenues, and as Brenda explained earlier, golf revenues are up substantially. I will mention a couple that we'll talk about later. Golf cart rentals is up 42%, and green fees is up 29%. So, and that'll become important in a few minutes. The Golf Pro, his budget is about where you would expect. There's two line items that are way over. Buildings and grounds maintenance and equipment maintenance. One is over 176%, and then equipment maintenance is over 496 or almost 500%. And this is because we are using our golf carts a lot more than had expected. Our golf carts were earmarked to be replaced next fiscal year, so probably August or September. And the reason for that is we know what to expect out of the life of our batteries and our golf carts. And because we're using them about 40% more this year, they are failing. And John has had a difficult time continuing to keep enough running. And again, we'll talk about that in a second when we talk about other equipment. But any questions with Golf Pro? All right, our golf superintendent area, the maintenance area is right on line where they should be, and that is great news, because with the extra use of the court, obviously the impact on the turf and the facilities is up. So we're excited and glad to report to you that the golf maintenance side of it is on line with what would be expected. Any questions with golf superintendent or maintenance? Okay. Now let me talk about some of our concerns that we have with CIP projects that were cut out last year, or cut out this year, excuse me. So I'll start with Murray Park. Murray Park, there's one item that has we need to consider replacing. It was asked for in this year's budget and cut out, and that was a pickup truck for $40,000. This is a truck that has 120,000 miles. The truck now has some problems with the rear end. Our fleet maintenance has done some cheap patchwork to it and told Bruce not to let the truck go out on the freeway or on high speeds. And if it breaks down, call a wrecker, because we're not going to repair it. So we're hoping that you will consider funding that at this point. At the Senior Recreation Center, had requested $45,000 to replace their HVAC system in the building. The building has 4 furnaces and 4 air conditioning systems. One of those systems has gone down. It went down several months ago. Because we're not using the building, when we've been able to close some vents and some doors and open some other doors and make it work for what we're doing. But if we open up, this system basically heats the cultural arts room and the lunchroom. So if we open up, we're going to need to replace that. So that's $45,000 to replace the entire system, all 4 systems. And it just, in our mind, doesn't make sense to replace one when we know the other 3 need to be replaced as well. At golf maintenance, Dave is reporting that there are 2 items of his concern and both were in the budget, and again taken out for cost savings. One is the sand raking machines, $36,000. This is for 2 sand raking machines. One right now is not operational, and the other is failing and needs maintenance on them. He will need to spend a substantial amount of money on both of these before summer months and we get busy. So if we don't replace them, he'll need to repair those machines. And then the other thing.
That amount. Sorry, I just missed the amount for those.
$1,000.
Sorry, one more time.
$36,000.
Thank you.
Are we
replacing? The other one for golf maintenance is, I'm sorry, Rosalba, did you have something?
No. Yeah, are we replacing them or fixing them?
We're asking to replace them at $36,000.
Okay.
If we don't replace them, we have to repair them.
Okay, perfect. I was just trying to understand if we were replacing them or repairing them. Okay, great. Thank you.
And then the other thing that Dave has.
Tim, is that 36 grand do both of them, or is that a piece?
That'll do both of them. They're 18,000 each.
Thank you.
And then the other thing that Dave has is an equipment lift has failed, and that's $10,000. So that's all that I have from the general fund. And if you add all those numbers up, it comes out to $131,000 total, and that includes $46,000 for the golf maintenance and $85,000 for our other areas, Murray Park and the Senior Recreation Center. And then the last thing that I have to talk to you about is our golf carts. So I mentioned that our golf carts needed extensive amount of repairs. The main thing is the batteries. it costs $900 to replace one golf cart's batteries. John has found out that because of the overuse, he's constantly replacing batteries to keep carts that able to go 18 holes. He's having to move batteries from one machine to the others to try and make them work. He has 70 carts. He currently has 18 carts that will not hold a charge long enough to go 18 holes. So here's our options. We know that if we go through the summer, that the batteries that are currently not new are going to fail as well. We estimate that it'll cost $40,000 to $50,000 to replace those batteries just to make it through the summer. And that doesn't include tires and seats that also need to be repaired. We can purchase new carts at $380,000. We're currently scheduled to purchase the carts after July. So if we were able to purchase the carts prior to July, or prior really to the summer getting busy, we're going to save the city $40,000 to $50,000 in repairs. And we trade in the carts. Well, as long as the cart will drive on the trailer, it's worth the same amount of money, a little under $1,000. They don't care if the carts will go 18 holes or if they'll drive onto the trailer. So we're not doing anything. We're not saving money by fixing the batteries. We're basically just spending money to get it through the summer. The new carts do have a lithium battery, which is lighter than the other batteries. And they also have a 5-year warranty, which is substantial because the carts we have now have a 4-year warranty, and we've been getting about 5 years out of them. We figure with the new batteries, lithium batteries, we'll get 6 to 7 years. So over the period of 7 years, we would save quite a bit of money. Plus John's crews are the ones that are having to replace these batteries. Each one's 100 pounds. There's 4 batteries per cart, so you can imagine the extra maintenance or costs of employees. So, but normally what we do is purchase the carts by borrowing money from the power fund. So we would need to borrow money from the power fund to be able to purchase the carts. And Brenda can certainly explain more about that than I can, but we do pay the power fund back 2% for the loan on the carts. Now, something else to consider, if you were to tell me today that John could buy carts, he won't have them tomorrow. Last week, he called the company that supplies the carts. Unfortunately, they are under the state bid, so that saves some money. But if we ordered carts last week, we were 2 months out, which means we would get them sometime in March time frame, maybe April, which would be great because we wouldn't have the summer months, which are the high use months. So hopefully I explained that right. Any questions?
Yes. How many carts are we looking to replace versus?
We would replace the entire fleet, which is 70 carts.
70 carts. And that would be at $380,000.
That's $380,000, and that pricing is after our trade-in value.
Okay. And then with the old carts, we would just put them for surplus. Is that correct?
We would trade them in.
Trade them in. Okay. Okay.
Kim, do the lithium batteries, I'm just curious, do they charge quicker than the batteries, like the $900 ones you're going to replace them with? Because I know that takes a long time to charge. How fast does it take to do? I know lithium should be quicker.
Good point. They charge a lot quicker, Brett, and they also take less electricity to charge, and then they last longer as well.
They do last longer.
There's definitely cost savings with electricity, and certainly we're going green by doing that.
Oh, awesome. That's great to hear.
So on this, it took Kim and John a lot of convincing to convince me that we really did need new golf carts. Okay, because I was hoping we could get another year out of them, but that's not going to happen. What I'm really hoping is that these, with some repairs at the end of the 5 years, like the seats and maybe to the water cup holder or whatever breaks, that we may be able to get 6 or 7 years out of these because the lithium batteries will last longer. So I have talked to Power, and they're okay loaning the funds to the golf course. If you say in general you're in agreement, we will order the carts, and then I will start GL working on the paperwork. You as a council have to approve loans between the two funds. The good thing about this is if we go internal, we're doing it at a 2%. If we leased the golf carts, it would be at least a 4% interest rate they would pay. And right now, we're earning less than 2% on our money. So it actually gives a few extra dollars to the Power Fund to have them loan the money. So I think it's a good deal. I'm thinking that if we postpone at all, we're just going to be throwing good money after bad, and we're going to end up in the same place in 3 or 4 months. So I have done some research, and we're going to structure this loan just a little bit different than the other one. We're going to, because golf has done so well this year, we're going to have them do a down payment on them, which will come before you in a budget opening. And then we will have the first payment, instead of waiting a whole year, be in November, so that they will get paid off a little quicker than previous ones. We still actually have one payment left to make on the old golf carts, which will happen July 1st. And we time it in July because that's when golf has the most cash. So, but I'm okay with them doing this financially. I mean, golfers want golf carts. They don't want to walk. So if we want to keep the golf course going, and they expect a certain level of golf cart at the Murray Park. So I think we should keep them happy. And just so you know, the golf carts at $389,000 will pay for themselves in 1 year. And then after that, it's just maintenance and profit that turns to cover the other costs in the golf course.
Yeah, if I mind, I think the golf carts are a no-brainer. We can spend $50,000 to get batteries, and God knows how many backs we throw out while they're changing them, or we can and then replace them anyway, or we can get them now and be ready. I think this is a no-brainer. I think we move ahead with it.
Okay.
And I'm glad that they're going lithium. So that makes a lot of sense. I always like it when we can go green. So that's helpful.
It seems everyone's in agreement about the golf carts. I haven't seen anyone looking like strong oppose. I think it's wiser probably than the batteries, like Dale said. And I'm not a golfer, and I could see a couple people I've had that conversation with kind of smiling at me through this conversation a little bit. I grew up on a golf course, and the balls would fly over our fence, and then I'd sell them back to the golfers for a profit till they chased me up to my house. So it's nothing I'm used, but gosh, every time I drive by that golf course, there's people there, and it's freezing, and they're out there golfing. I'm like, all right. So I think it's a good use of funds, and I think
I do have one question. Because because CIP does fund the capital projects for the golf course, if he can find electric equipment for the golf course equipment, and it costs more, could we use some of your money we have set aside for electric vehicles, or I can't even remember what we called it. We have $27,000 set aside for the offset increased cost. Could we use some of that cost to cover, if you can find, I don't even know if they exist, golf equipment like those sand rakers that were electric instead of gas?
Brenda, Dave actually has several electric mowers.
Okay, so he's already started that process.
We've been using them for several years, yes.
Okay, good.
Quick question, where does the funding come from for the electric? I know we have it in the budget, but is it just what we put into it from the tax?
Yeah, what we did was we allocated 2 years ago $30,000 for electric vehicles, the difference in the cost. And we did purchase one. And then this year we didn't add any more money to it because we weren't going to purchase a lot of cars. And I think the police chief will tell you that they would like to purchase electric cars, but the problem is the batteries take up all the equipment space. So and usually the cars are a little smaller, and the guys getting in and out of those little cars with all of their stuff on their belts, it's tricky. So when they find one that will work at some point, and it will happen, we'll probably do more.
Well, and there are also other departments that's certainly available to them to use.
Yes.
As well, and I would really like to encourage that and eventually add more, so.
Yes. So I guess the general consensus is, because you can't vote, general consensus is the golf cart's a no-brainer, and we should probably get them ordered and get the paperwork going. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, sorry, lastly, I was going to say about that fund is I would hate for our fund to be depleted on just golf carts. I don't know how we could like give more money back into that. I just
right now we are they're with their revenue right now, they are doing really well. So I had Nate do a study just to make sure that I wasn't going to deplete their cash by trying to make them pay the loan a little earlier. And I can't anticipate what's going to happen, but I have a feeling that next year people are going to be golfing as much as they did this year, just because the pandemic's not over yet, and it's a safe or safer thing to do. And we will be renting more golf carts because people are going out in ones instead of twos a lot of time. You can't share it with somebody you don't live with. That's our rule. So I don't think we'll be depleting their cash at all doing this. And we do subsidize them. And in the next budget, we will talk about how much we will be subsidizing them besides just their equipment. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So Kat, if I could just say one more thing, with the golf course, we talk about the pandemic, and certainly the pandemic is a big reason that people are golfing more. They have more discretionary income and less things to do with their time. But I think there's another factor that we need to remember, and that is Dave and John's management of the golf course. We were open when other courses were closed. We opened earlier than other courses, and people still have a choice as to where they golf. And Murray Parkway is among one of the top choices. So kudos to Dave and to John for their management of the golf course. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out, Kim. Absolutely. Go ahead, Diane.
I definitely agree with that. I think they do a great job. And I am a golfer, so.
I've seen you golf, Diane.
All right,
Dale, you be nice.
Easy does it, everybody. Okay, before we move on, I just want to jump back to the other requests that we didn't really talk about, the pickup truck, the HVAC, the sand raking and equipment lift. I think all of those seemed reasonable and some of them quite essential. Did anyone want to ask more questions about any of those or have concerns before we move on? No? Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Kim, and for all the work that you're doing. We know it's an incredibly difficult time with a difficult budget, and we just thank you for everything you're doing.
Thanks for your support. We appreciate all of you.
Absolutely. All right, we continue to cruise ahead on time. Last I looked over, I didn't see Chief Harris, but I did see Robin, and she's next on the agenda if she wants to jump in and talk about HR, how they're doing, how their budget is, and if they need anything.
You bet. Thanks. Mine's a fairly simple budget. So it looks like everything is on track. But
Sorry,
pardon me.
page 41. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Oh. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so everything is on track this year. I don't foresee anything coming up that would derail my budget. I did this year cut out a lot of my travel and training budget and then some of the professional services, but I don't see the need to add any of that back for this budget year. Other than that, I can just answer any questions you might have.
I have a question. I'm not sure. I think this is under HR, but some COVID sick leave was expiring in January. Did we extend that in for Murray City employees, or did that expire in January?
Yeah, if you're referring to the FFCRA, we did extend, and we didn't end date it. So the new law made it effective through March 31st. But the mayor it's just left open-ended. So we haven't set it to expire at March 31st, but just when, I guess we just kind of see how everything rolls out this year with the pandemic, you know?
Right. No, thank you. That's great information. I wasn't sure where we were at with that. Any other questions? No. All right, Robin. Well, that was painless, hopefully. Okay, next up, I see that we have Danny on. If he wants to talk to us about Public Works, tell us how they're doing and what they need.
Sorry. I'm trying to work at the same time. I'm trying to listen.
No, you're great. Thanks for being on early. We appreciate your flexibility.
Well, I was just, I could have jumped in earlier, but I thought the others were going to jump in. And so, but anyway, we'll start. I believe we're on page 84 to start with. And this is our public work. So it's our streets, and engineering basically is page 85. So we are doing really well on our streets budget. I don't see any concerns there. We've had a few individuals retire, and so we've been trying to make sure that all of our positions get filled as the circle goes around the city. So sometimes we steal, and sometimes other people take them from us. So no questions on streets. I'll move on to our engineering budget. Again, this is a general budget that we're a little high in our vehicle maintenance, but I think that was just it might have an invoice might have gotten applied to the wrong account, but overall we're right in line with where we need to be, and so we don't see any issues going forward with our budget. So with that one. So and then moving on to page 87 is or 86 is our 86 is our Class C, and we are working on the projects that were set aside. You can see that our road salt's only 2%. We're still working from last year, what we purchased at the end of the year last year. We're still working on that pile. So we haven't purchased any salt this year. We've been brining most of what we've been doing, but we've also been out salting the last couple of days. So we're using a little bit of road salt, but the other budgets we're where we need to be with our maintenance, and we know what projects we're working on and what things we're going to be finishing up We've got a lot of projects planned, so some of the maintenance and other things that part of it will be slowed down. You can see that our sidewalk budget, we're about half spent there. And so the contractor will be back first thing in the spring, and he's got a big list of projects that he'll be doing. Currently, our streets department is catching up on a few of those things with this good weather, especially with some of our ADA ramps and small pieces of a curb and gutter and sidewalk that they can do. Other than that, no questions there. We'll move on to page 87, which is our water fund. And with this, the revenues obviously we're already 76% on our revenue. So we're doing really well. I was looking at some statistics from last year versus this year, and it's interesting. Very, very early in the spring, well, it's in January, February timeframe, our revenue was actually lower this year than it was the previous year, and that's due, I think, to a couple of things. One is that if people understand the new rate structure and they conserve, they'll actually save money staying in those lower tiers, and that's what I've seen, and that's what I believe what happened there. But the overall year, it was this kind of matches. This year has matched one of our highest years of usage, and people they just didn't pay attention to their water use, and unfortunately, customer service had to take a lot of calls about the budget billing program because they didn't pay attention to it. They weren't paying on a monthly basis, paying attention to what their average was last year versus this year, and it went way up. And so when the budget billing changed on them this year, there was a lot of calls that came in, and I'm grateful for them that they took the calls, but I'm sorry that they had to do that. So, but our revenues are well, and we, but that wasn't our intention with the, is to gain all this revenue. That wasn't the intention of the increase and setting the rates the way that they were. It was to encourage savings of water. So we're hoping that maybe the message got through this year. So we're hoping that'll go forward. So, but the rest of the budget, page 88, the administrative side of things.
Danny, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Brett.
Or just a statement. I appreciate you saying that because, I wasn't 100% sure. I know we've had a discussion on that. So it was just basically, like Brenda had said earlier, that people are watering longer in the year and watering more. And based on what the structure is now, that it went up. They kept watering.
Correct. Yeah, and it's a hard message to get through, especially when it hits your pocketbook. But that again, that's coming from the state. That was their encouragement, is to set the rates so that, because that's about the only way to get people to change their behaviors. Sometimes is when it hits their pocketbook. We'd rather not do that, but that's the way it happened. So
yeah, it hit a lot of pocketbooks this year. So thanks, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. But the water budget, we are we'll actually be spending some of our travel and training this spring. They are going to hold some live sessions for our water operators and our wastewater operators for their for certifications. And the interesting thing is that they're offering the classes virtually, but they're not going to offer the test virtually. So you have to do the test in person, and you have to go down to St. George to do it. Go figure. So, so we'll be sending some guys to get their certifications done as part of this. So, but at least they're opening it up. This is coming from Rural Water, and they did a good job last fall with a live session up in Ogden, and I think they'll do the same thing down in St. George this spring. So that's coming up in first part of March. But the rest of the budget is just really good, and we don't see any concerns there. We are having, there are concerns on a couple of things that in our budget that we've had some maintenance things hit us, but we think that we're going to be able to manage those with the overall total budget. So our operations and maintenance basically is the same thing. The only thing that might be way out of line is probably our fluoride. We had, it's kind of interesting when the water usage and when we fill up our fluoride containers, because they're very large containers, and when we do it, so it was in July, right after the new budget took effect, and we had to fill up everything again. So, and then we had a real heavy year, and so we had to fill them up a couple more times with the water production. So we're about 94% spent on that. But overall, and again, the budget is in really good shape, so we don't see any concerns there. And again, our meter readers, that budget is in good shape, no concerns. We'll definitely be able to stay within our budgets there. Our capital, our equipment, we basically purchased all of the equipment that we got authorization to purchase. Nothing was held back, so we basically purchased everything, and I think there's maybe one or two vehicles that still are in transit. So the factories have been slower than normal, but that's to be expected with everything else. And I don't know if you've got any questions with the water before we move on. Okay, we'll jump to page 91 on our wastewater fund. I think we're right where we needed to be with our wastewater expenditures. We're sitting right there at the 50% mark. So we don't see anything there. Our revenue actually with our impact fees is a little higher than I anticipated that it would be. There have been a few developments, and there'll be more coming in. So when they come in, that will add to that. But we have projects that we'll be assigning those monies to as well. Okay. And then in the operations, the administration and operations budget, doing well there. We don't see anything in the light items or concerns that we're facing on the operations. The budget for Central Valley, which is page 93, we're right on task with that. I think we gave ourselves a little bit more cushion than we thought we needed, or than we needed. But I think that was a good plan on our part. But moving forward, I think our expenses, overall expenses at the plant, are actually going down as far as operations are concerning, which also takes into effect the cost of the construction and our percentage owing during doing that. We are currently completing the master plan that was budgeted for this last year, and as part of that master plan, we decided to double check our rate structure to make sure that we are going to be able to meet our needs, not just for our operations here in our collection system, but also for Central Valley. One of the things that's happened at Central Valley is cost overruns there because of construction costs went up like crazy in the past 2 years. And so we started at about 350 million, and we're over 400 million now, and that concerns us. So we're double checking that to make sure that we're going to be okay. I'm hopeful that we had a 5-year plan with rate increases, very small increases, and so next year there's still one more on that 5-year plan on that increase, and I'm hoping that will be good for a couple of years before we have to do anything more. But we will let you know if there's anything new that comes up from that. So, any questions on the wastewater fund? Okay, let's move on to page 94, and that's solid waste. So I don't know if our budget is in really good shape right now. I think Brenda talked about that at the beginning, and what we've done, double checking our model, made our rates a little bit different, and that's helped us tremendously to be able to look forward to the future and what we're going to be able to do. I know that our new contract, solid waste contract, probably wasn't the most well received throughout the community, but I think for most people it has been. But there's been a lot of confusion with the days, for recycling pickup, and there's been a few that were upset about instead of every day or every week, every other week, but. I think people will get used to it, and if they want an extra can, they can buy the extra can. But with the cost of recycling and then wanting a cleanup program, we're looking forward to that. So we have a meeting here this next week with ACE, and so we should have a program that we can present and then get that out to the community of what that's going to look like for them. So in the next few weeks, we'll have that, and hopefully that will go over really, really good. So, but our budget's in really good shape, but we don't see any concerns in our operations at this point in time. So any questions with our solid waste?
Danny?
Yes.
I've been hearing that the cost of recycling is going down. Have you heard that?
No, not yet. The commodity market isn't gone up, so for us it's not going down at this point in time.
Oh, really? Huh.
But information is slow coming sometimes, and some people are more optimistic than others, but we'll see where that goes. But if that happens, that's great. Maybe we can, but it's something we may not be able to count on.
Yeah.
But we know that there are recycling plants coming online for other commodities, and so once they start up, whether it's a paper mill or whether it's plastic or whatever it might be, when they start coming online, then we can actually see the commodity prices. The cost of recycling will go down for us. So.
Good. I hope so, because that's what I've been hearing. So.
Okay.
I hope it was correct information.
Yeah. No, I would welcome that too. So, thank you, and I'll check into that a little bit more. All right, so Stormwater Fund, page 96. There's not a whole lot there to talk about. Our Stormwater Fund is doing well. We're starting to gain some money in our reserve to pay for some of these larger projects. With the increase that we just did, and looking forward to doing a couple of projects this next spring. that we're working on right now for design. And we'll keep watching it. So, but we don't see any reason why we can't stay within our budget here. So, any questions about our stormwater? All right, then our central garage. Yeah, it's pretty status quo. It's doing really well. They're actually doing really good work. A lot of the departments are bringing more of their equipment and more of their things into the shop now. They're taking on larger projects as well, larger pieces of equipment, and doing a great job with them. The servicing, they've done a good job with that. If somebody pulls in and needs a service, a couple of the guys will just jump right on that and get the service in and out, and that's been quite a nice thing for the other divisions as well. So, and they're doing well. So we don't see any issues with that budget per se. So, so if you want to go back to page 32 and talk about our CIP a little bit. So, well, actually 31 and 32. So you can see on page 31, there were a couple of large trucks that we deferred. We did buy the crack sealer, so that we are using that now. That was a great purchase for us. We appreciate that. Talking to our streets department, if we still need to wait, we're fine waiting. Just the one truck's 20 years old, the other one's 19, so another year. It's just more maintenance money, so we'll be fine. The things on page 32, though, the ones that I'd like to mention is we didn't get funded. We asked for an additional $35,000 for our transportation plan, and we are going to be short with our transportation plan, somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. We tasked our consultant to do some additional traffic modeling, and that took him quite a bit of time, and so we think that we're going to be short about that much. And so if we can get 20,000 for that, that would be very helpful. The other thing would be is the radar speed signs. If there's a possibility to get that back into the budget so that we can look forward to getting more of those speed signs out there, that would be very helpful to us. And then the only other thing that we probably really are going to need for sure is the Hanauer Street. With all of the work that took place on Hanauer Street, there were some items in the construction that weren't part of the original design and bidding. There was landscaping, there was some electrical, and there was some other things that didn't get included in that. And so we originally just cut $50,000 off of that budget, but we're going to need that 50 and maybe another 150 to finish paying for that. So if that's a possibility, we really need that since the road's basically built now. So
that's a total of 150, not 50.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it's actually a total of 200. So we want the 50 and an additional 150.
So on the Hanover Street project, I didn't go over this before, but as we have the new transit tax, sales tax, and I did not include that in any of the previous discussion that we had. That is trending the same way as our normal sales tax. And I had budgeted $1.2 million for that tax. And so that's what Danny had put in his budget as transportation projects. I think it's going to trend at least at 1.5 million and possibly even a little higher, because I did the same thing I did with the, I just projected for the rest of the next 6 months, we would get the same thing we got the last 6 months. So he has approximately, I think I've under budgeted that by $294,000. So I could, to fund the Hanover Road project, I could increase the budget in the general fund, transfer more money to the capital projects fund, and cover the Hanover Street project. That transit, the reason I left it out from the sales tax, it's only can be used for streets projects. So it's going to go to capital projects and be used for a streets project no matter what happens, whether I increase the budget or not. Next, it would either be used this year or next year.
Right.
So
we can't use that money for his signs and stuff, all right?
That's a good question.
Brenda,
what?
can we can't use that money for his speed signs and such.
We could use that money for his speed signs also. Anything that has to do with transportation, and it could be used for trails if we needed to do some trails maintenance or something. Sidewalks, it's just all kind of transit related, and they classify trails as that too. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that finishes up where, I mean, there are other projects that we had on there, and I think we are really busy and will be this spring taking care of the projects we have online. So we're fine putting off any other projects at this point in time. So we're good. But if we could have those, have some of that money returned, that would be very helpful to us.
Any questions for Danny about that? No? Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Danny. Those sound reasonable to me, and we know that we asked you guys to cut a lot. We didn't know what was going to happen, so we really appreciate how hard everyone's working to make it work. And I just wanted to say thank you for your guidance on the recycling. It has been really challenging explaining to residents. I think taking away something to replace it with something they don't see yet is really hard. But if the point of recycling is to actually get it recycled, that it just wasn't working. And so I think it was the right choice, but it wasn't maybe a popular one. But I still appreciate all the guidance you gave on that, and I think we're headed in hopefully a good direction with it.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I agree. It's a hard thing to take something away. What's hard for me is to understand if there's somebody that's actually filling their can with something recyclable on a weekly basis. It's, versus garbage. Because if you read, what few things that you could put in a recycle container, I can't imagine if a family of 12 even purchasing enough items to do that. But, especially if you cut down boxes, for example, if you're buying a lot of things, you can cut down boxes and you can fill that can really full with boxes. So, but we hope once the program gets rolled out that people will see that maybe this was a good thing for us. But we know we're going to have problems with it too. So we're just moving forward and we'll work on the problems when they happen. So we appreciate your help and support with here. Anything I can do, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Danny.
Hey, Dan.
All right, then
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say
Yes.
one thing about the recycling. I know in our home I've been a huge recycler, and so teaching the kids and everything, we actually printed out the form,
Yeah.
the form next to our recycling box. So we do recycle a lot and are considering a second can. But what I'm thinking is maybe we do a little bit more either through social media where we post it on what can go in those recycling cans, just to re-educate ourselves within the city on using those cans moving forward, or if there's any other educational pieces that we can add on. I think that will help alleviate some of the frustration.
Yeah, thank you for that. We actually talked about that in our staff meeting on Monday morning, and we are going to add that to every single week to our social media posts. But I think what we'll do also is to add that in updates and the e-newsletter that the mayor's office puts out. Try to, put a few extra tips in there as well. So we'll try to be more effective in trying to get the information out.
Awesome. Well, thank you either way. And you do such a great job. So thank you so much.
Got a good crew.
All right, if no one else has any questions, then we will let Danny go. And I see that we've got Murray City Fire Department logged on.
Yeah.
And if you're ready, we'd love to hear how you guys are doing, how the budget's looking, and what you need.
Sure thing. Sure. Well, let me start with, hey, thanks for lunch today. That was very nice and welcome. Appreciate that. Just to kind of let you know too, not budget related, but today was the first day that the second COVID vaccination shot was available to our crews. So we've just started that process. Over the next couple of weeks, a lot of us will be getting that second shot. I was able to get mine today, but I'm really happy about that because it makes our department a lot more resilient. I spent a long time worrying about if we had a mass infection in our department, our ability to continue to provide service to the community. So this makes us so much more resilient. So very excited about that. I just had the shot like about an hour ago. So if there's any side effects, you'll probably see me fall off the screen at some point. So just keep an eye out for that. So overall, our budget is looking very strong.
Sorry, we didn't say what page. I forgot to ask. That's my
46.
There you go.
46. Thank you. Sorry.
So just overall, I think our budget's looking very strong. It's kind of interesting, the effects, so to speak, that the pandemic and some of the COVID CARES Act money had on our budget. So for example, some of the medical supplies that we would ordinarily order were actually covered by the CARES Act, which helped us out a little bit. So some of our budget lines with the medical supplies, our training and travel lines, you might notice are actually a lot lower than they normally are this time of year because we've had conferences and different symposiums that we normally go to that were canceled. So kind of starting off with the good stuff. We've had, but even though those lines are low right now, we still have some training props and some things. We'll still utilize those funds, but we're just kind of waiting to see what the next few months brings and everything. But so very positive. Our overtime right now, Brenda's been helping me out a bunch with overtime because our overtime gets very complicated with some of our wildland deployments and with some of the COVID that we're getting reimbursed for. But essentially right now, our overtime's right about where it should be. It looks good. And unless we get plagued with some more COVID complications or some more injuries, we should be looking pretty good. But we'll continue to maintain an eye on that as we go through the year. Okay, what are we overspent on, or at least farther along than we should be? One of them is professional services, and this is regarding, it's regarding the mental health and the cancer screening. So let me start off with the cancer screening. If you recall, one thing we added to the budget this year was to get a blood test done for the firefighters. And we did that a couple of weeks ago, and we're actually just getting the results in right now. And although I'm not privy to all people, it's a medical record, so people don't have to tell me what happens. But I already got a response that we've had a positive cancer marker and somebody's following up on it. So it depends whether you look at that as a good thing or not, but hopefully we'll find out that either they have nothing or we're getting be able to treat something very early. So I think that program is going to be very good. Now, where we're overspent though, is on mental health. We had a bunch of funds donated from Honor 365 to cover mental health. And this year we finished using that money, and now we're using other funds in that professional services line. And we're finding that we've had quite a substantial amount of mental health usage this year. So even though we're not overspent yet, if we continue at this rate, we will probably be overspent by the end of the year. Not by a whole lot, but that might be something that we look to increase next year. Any questions about anything I've mentioned so far?
That's just a wonderful thing to have available, and especially when you talk about the cancer notice. But the mental health thing is wonderful, and I don't think you have a single person here that cares that you're going over on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I was just going to say, what do we have to do to make sure you have those funds?
Yeah, and we'll see where we end up at the end of the year, and I'll be able to give you a better indication of. It'll only be a few thousand more to put in, I'm sure. It won't be anything that substantial. But as you recall, Jordan Peterson, who got the Mayor's Award of Excellence, I think it was called, for his work with mental health. He's just made our program very strong on our department. And we owe a lot of the success of the program to him. It's been fantastic. Yeah.
So Del, in partial answer to your question, the fire department has enough other budget lines that are significantly under budget that will cover whatever this one is over. And if it doesn't, we will bring a budget opening in. But I think he's got enough things that are running below budget that he should be okay.
Yeah, I agree. We're looking good. Looking real good. But I appreciate the council's support on that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Equipment maintenance line, you might notice looks really bad, looks really overspent, but it's actually not. A big expense that we have in that line is when we have to do state inspections of our ambulances, and that's already happened. So a lot of it's spent, but it's actually still okay. So I don't have any concerns there right now. And that's all the things I think that are worth concerning bringing up other than capital improvement. Before I get into the capital improvement fund, any other questions about anything in the budget that might stuck out a little bit? Okay, very good. All right, the capital improvement fund, this is a program that, we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how much needs to go into our CIP annually every year. And it's a very interesting thing because, we determined all of our large purchases, allocate them over several years, replacement schedule to figure out how much we need every year to keep that going. So with this last budget year, we got $550,000 less into our CIP than we were hoping to get to fund that capital improvement program. So what does that mean? For right now, we're fine. And for next year, we're fine. But in 2023 or 2024, we're going to find that we're short funds and that we need that. And what's going to happen then is going to be the next apparatus purchase. And at that time, we won't have enough saved. So, well, it depends how you look at it. It's like we can try to get that back into the budget. Or like I said, if we wait, we'll find ourselves hurting at some point. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that?
Is it, I'm just looking at the fire department CIP. Is that overall or specifically one of them or both, or what are?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. We have that, you're talking, we have it split up, and the CIP is actually split up into a few different areas. Yeah, I guess I'm talking overall. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of put them together in my head.
Oh, that's fine. Just want to make sure I'm following along.
Yeah. Yep. Brenda, anything to add to that?
No, essentially this year he was not going to spend anything but the refurbish of the ambulance, and I haven't heard anything about that. So if you have an update, that would be interesting. But he was only going to spend for the refurbishment of the ambulance, and he was going to save everything else. So at some future point, we will probably have to make, well, in fact, it will probably be next year, because he was going to take that money, the money he has saved previously, and then some of next year's money and buy a fire truck, which we already have prepaid because the lead time is so much, and they give us a huge discount if we pay in advance. So next fall, that one's a really long lead time. Next fall, we'll be receiving a fire apparatus that will be in next year's budget.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Brenda. Yeah, so the refurb ambulance and the engine, both those companies have had significant delays due to COVID, having to close their factory for a while and opening it back up. The ambulance was slated for spring. I'm not sure how long of a delay they're looking. The fire engine, yeah, I think they're talking about in the fall, and hopefully it'll be done then. Yeah. So everything's just a little bit later, but I'm glad that we were able to get that order, at least get first in line, so to speak. Yeah. So the big expense I'm talking about probably in 2023 or 24 will be the purchase of a new ladder truck. So what we're doing right now, I think you're all aware, but just to kind of let you know, is at Station 83, and that's the one on the west side of 59th, we are running what we call a jump crew. So we have, depending on the nature of the call, the crew will either jump in the engine or jump in the ladder if it's necessary. And one of the main reasons we're doing that is, well, the ladder is very expensive to operate, but it's also getting quite old. And it has some big repairs right over the horizon, repairs in the nature of $250,000 that I'm trying through this jump crew to avoid doing. And my hope is by not driving it very much, that we can limp that piece of apparatus on for 2 or 3 years until we can purchase a new ladder truck. Yeah.
How much is a new ladder truck?
Well, that's a good question. And it can vary depending on the type of apparatus that you want to get. And it will take some research and I suppose and leadership to determine what we want to get. So for example, the type that we have right now, which we call a tower, is one with a bucket. And that probably can run you 1.6 plus million to get another one of those. But if you decide to get one without a bucket, and they can put it on a much smaller piece of apparatus, so it's just a stick, right? There's nothing on the end of the ladder. I think we can get one of those for 1.2 or 1.3. Of course, I don't know what they'll be in 2 or 3 more years from now, but we really need to look at the needs of Murray and what will suit our needs the best. Yeah. Joey, did you have something to add to that?
I don't. I think that sums it up perfect. I guess I could add the needs that he's talking about is a stick is obviously more maneuverable with all of our apartments that are coming in, as well as, it has some versatility that way. However, a bucket is very functional on a fire. So what he says, it's not such an easy decision that we ever take lightly. And Murray, over the history, Chief Harris will tell you that, and so will Mayor Camp, that we've kind of bounced around with different ideas, and each time has served many different purposes.
Yeah, Diane, what's interesting too is, even though we're our own department and stand independently, it also takes a little bit of research and seeing what currently is around you, right? Because, for instance, if we have a tower right next door to the department, maybe we can get by with a ladder, or vice versa, right? So we kind of look at ourselves, and then we look at what we're surrounded with to decide what the valley needs as well.
It'd be cool to have one of those electric apparatuses.
Oh, I know that you and I saw. Yeah, those are neat. You know, I haven't really heard any more about those. Yeah, I wonder who's got delivery of those and how they're doing for them, because it had a lot of neat functions to it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was awesome.
You know, were you with me when I took pictures of the inside and got yelled at?
Yep.
Yeah, it was all trade secrets. I wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have budget-wise to let you about. Like I said, we're doing real well. We're real happy with where we're at. My only concern really is that CIP and how that's going to affect us over the years.
And how much short were we for that this year?
That was 550.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments from anyone else in the council?
Just a big thanks to all of you.
Yeah, it's always great to see you. And Joey, thanks.
Thank you. And again, thanks for all the support from the council. I appreciate it.
You guys are awesome.
All right. So we had a long list of things today. Is there anything anyone wants to revisit or has concerns about that was requested? I know we were all taking notes furiously, but I think on mine they all seemed reasonable and within what Brenda had said was available in the budget, but I'd love to hear from everyone else.
So I have a question. I know on page, 29 and on, it just has I'm assuming what we took out from the budget originally. And is this what we're trying, or is this what will be implemented? I know each department kind of laid out what they want, and they didn't really get into many specifics about how much. So what are we exactly approving, I guess, moving forward? Is it everything on this list, or is it what they asked for?
What they asked for. So what I heard was about a total of, including the Hanauer Road project, around $668,000. I think for fire, we can just make sure that next year when we fund the budget, we don't need to do a budget opening. It's not like the fire department is going to spend on this fire truck this year. We can make sure that it catches itself up in the next year's budget. So I'm not concerned about that. If he was going to have spent it, then I would do a budget opening. But since he's not, the rest of the stuff, I got a few things for parks, for golf, the Hanauer Street, the traffic warning signs that tell me to slow down every time I go by the cemetery. And that came up to about $668,000 out of capital projects. And then the general fund was very minor. It was the few things for council and IT's $100,000 for equipment and the police overtime for $7,000. I will take care of his overtime. And if fire ends up needing overtime, I will take care of that with the CARES budget. And
last question I had is if there was, I'm not sure if we approved like all cars, but I guess my biggest concern is they'll probably increase in cost is what it's looking like it's trending, correct?
Right.
If there was something we didn't approve of, maybe we can look at that in approving or seeing what the cost would be and how long it would be to get them back. I don't know. I would hate to go into the next budget and then it just be twice as much.
I'm scanning down to see what trucks and equipment we didn't fund that they just talked about today. And
I don't think there were any we specifically said we weren't in support of.
the cemetery had on their previous list a new truck, but they did not ask about it so it must be running okay. So that would be one that they had in there that we didn't fund. And I think
Power departments would be in CIP, right?
no, power department's in their own thing. So I will power department see what we did fund and he thought we didn't. And then I will make sure that we will do whatever openings we think we need to make sure his bucket trucks get fixed before we have a major issue. Or at least ordered with a 3-year lead time. So yeah, the only vehicles that we didn't do that no one asked about. So the police department, he asked for his, and that was included in my number. Parks asked for the pickup truck. And he asked for that. There was a tractor that a 1995 that they had asked for that we did not fund for $46,000. And other than that, just the cemetery truck was the only one we did not fund last year. So the vehicles we mostly funded. If you want me to put those in the budget opening, by the time we get them, nobody's going to say no if you say, do you want a new pickup truck that's got over 100,000 miles on it and was purchased in, it just says old truck. So
old beyond numbered.
To answer your question, yes, the cost of vehicles is probably going up. They didn't ask for them, so the need is there, but it's not pressing. So it's up to you whether we use funds this spring or if we wait and it comes out of next year's budget.
I ask a couple of questions?
Go ahead.
Or make a couple of points. First, Rosalba, to your question, were you specifically talking about the police cars? I wasn't sure if that's what you.
I saw the cemetery on there and police too. I mean, I would hate to go into this and then it end up being twice as much. So
Yeah, and I think you
gotta
make
be
a really
realistic.
good, I think you make a really good point because I think Chief Burnett was being a little more cautious than he really needed to be about requesting the cars because we had talked and I certainly would support getting those for the reasons that some of you, like Brett, you mentioned. The other thing I wanted to point out is that these requests have been vetted very carefully with each of the departments, and I'm really confident that they're not asking for anything that they don't really need. So, and I think you can see that. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think we all appreciate the thoughtfulness and that they put into their requests. And I know we hate that they had to make the requests and we couldn't give them everything the first time when we weren't sure what was going to happen this year. But so it seems like our recommendation is going to be that we all feel comfortable with these. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to back you on that and just say I totally agree with that and agree with what the mayor just said. And it was what a difference. And it's nothing to do with anybody. It's just what a difference this meeting was for me personally to be able to help these department heads that are just pleading. And yet, like the mayor said, Craig was very careful and very respectful about, well, they all were, but just cautious. And I think it's awesome that we're going to be able to do this. And Kat, you did a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Dale, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to ask Brenda, did you get the HVAC for the Senior Rec Center?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you. And I God, I hate to agree with Brett all the time, but I'm going to do it again.
All right. Go ahead, Diane.
I just wanted to make sure, Brenda, you're okay. We have the funds. It's you know, we're not, what is the term? Taking funds from one year and not being able to afford them the next year. So we're in good financial position to where we can be able to do that. I would think you would tell us if that weren't the situation.
Since I don't have a really clear crystal ball, I can't tell you that for sure, but we do have the reserves in CIP that what they asked for is not unreasonable. There's still enough funds in there that if a disaster happened, we could send money back to the general fund, but I don't foresee that happening. So I think what they asked for was well within reason. I'm not clear on whether you would like to add back any of the other equipment. I'm not clear on that. So if you would like the cemetery truck added back in or any of the other equipment, it's probably one of those things we either buy it this year or next year. They're probably going to need it also.
And we'll still have enough in reserves?
I think so. I probably wouldn't want to go more than a total of maybe $750,000 to $800,000, but we could add another truck or two or a piece of equipment if we needed to or wanted to, or we could leave it at exactly what they asked for.
Okay.
I would want to leave it with what they asked for now, with the understanding that if it comes up, there can be another budget opening presented.
Perfect.
And when we say what they asked for, we're talking about funding the police cars as well.
Yes. So
even though he was hesitant to ask for it.
yes. So I am the police cars at what they originally asked for level. So what was cut? Truck for the parks, the senior rec, the golf raking system, his equipment lift. I can understand why he needs that so that he can work on. I wouldn't want to work on a golf cart while it was sitting on the ground. And then the Hanover Street, the two other things that he wanted for, the traffic master plan overage and the radar signs, so we don't get behind on those. And it looks like those radar signs, sounds like from their description that it will include a message. So if there's something going on, I don't know where you have to be to change the message, but if there's something going on, they might be able to play with messages. So
Now fill me in on that. For some reason, it went over my head on the message.
well, it says in their description of the traffic signs for streets for the radar signs.
And we're talking when we say radar, we're talking really the speed signs? Or
Yeah,
is it
the
a
radar speed signs, 5 large signs with programmable messages. So in other words, you can put a message on there.
I don't know why I get confused when it says radar because I didn't think it was radar. I thought it was just a speed sign, but.
It uses radar to detect your speed.
And you and I are on the same street a lot because you and I go down that cemetery and I'm constantly going, oh my goodness, go 30, Brett, not 32.
I do like that Murray's speed limit is 30 and not 25 though.
Oh, yes. Now 30, so Craig's request was 8 car,
He'll actually, my plan was to give him the $292,000 that we cut out.
Gotcha.
How many cars he buys with that depends on how much they cost.
Gotcha. He said 40,000 a piece almost with equipment.
Yeah. If he can squeeze an extra car out of that, I don't care about the number, it's the dollars.
Yeah, he had the cars and then 7,000 for training and then the overtime budget that CARES is going to help with.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, Anyone else have any questions or comments before we wrap it up? Thank you everyone for reading the budget ahead of time, having great questions, and to our department heads for being so prepared and working so hard to get everything working. All right. Brett, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So our next, I can't remember the terminology of our next meeting. It's called something when we go over all the, or don't we have a follow-up where we go over?
I think
that's at the final.
Okay.
Sorry, but yeah, I'm thinking wrong. That's at the final. Hey.
Not for here, but.
Not for mid. Yep. Gotcha.
But we'll do that in 6 months. All right. Well, thank you everybody for a great day. We are adjourned.
Thank you.